How do you do, fellow kids?
Okay, that was much faster than I realized. I didn't realize Dane set up a pre-intro. So, how's everybody doing?
It's like so quick. I'm like, okay, 30 seconds. Oh wait, no, 3 seconds is literally what the
Yeah.
intro was. So
No, I hit live and it was like boom. It's like, oh
that's so
shit.
funny.
Okay. Yeah.
That's funny.
But yes, welcome to the Shillcast. This is without Dane, which isn't the first time without Dane, but like I guess it's one of the only times where I guess he didn't contribute anything, because I think last time he was off, he still did the intro, which was kind of funny. But yeah, yes. How you doing, Eric?
I'm good. I went to Dairy. 75 degrees here today, which is weird because last week we had 12 inches of snow. So I went to Dairy Queen because I wanted ice cream. And surprisingly, I know this is a big problem. It's an epidemic when it comes to Postmates and stuff. They won't deliver soft serve ice cream because it melts so quickly. They don't want to like send it out. So you can only get like Blizzards and Frosties and all that stuff. So when I was coming back from doing my errands, I saw the Dairy Queen and I was like, oh, soft serve ice cream. I wanted this the other day and I couldn't get it. So I was really happy about that. So far, so good. 75 degrees, soft serve ice cream. I think it's been a pretty solid start to my day. So no complaints.
Yeah, the weather's been really bizarre because like I go to work fucking earlier than anybody should ever be up. I go to work at 5. And when I go to work, past couple days, it's been like 10, 20 outside. So like usually there's a little bit of frost on the car for me to deal with. And then when I've been leaving work the past 2 days, it's been 65. So it's like I'm going outside and I'm all bundled up for winter, and then I'm leaving and it's like I need to be wearing a t-shirt. It's like there needs to be a middle ground. But I mean I guess that's global warming for us. Very
of
exciting.
Course. It's not real though. So
that is true. It is not real.
You're talking about mythology here. This is not real life.
I'm making up stuff. But guys, we have the real star of the show right here. So we're good. Yes. But yeah.
My cat has been making the rounds. I haven't seen
I know,
her
I just saw him.
Yeah, she's normally up here, but not now.
We have some more people joining us, but I guess we can go ahead and dive into some of these news articles, because some of these I don't have too much to say, but I think they're worth talking about, because this is one that I actually don't have too much to say about this guy, because I'll admit I'm not a massive fan, but it still is tragic that he passed at such a young age. Roberto Orsi. He worked with Alex Kurtzman. I will say I still enjoy Star Trek 2009, even though it's not dated particularly well. But he passed away at 51, which is really fucking young.
Yeah. I didn't look at why though. I didn't dive into why it is, but I will say this. I have a much, I guess in my circles, I have a bigger appreciation for the films than some people do. Only because I just think of them as another universe of Star Trek. So I don't really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I love Star Trek Beyond.
People get so upset about sometimes fidelity and legacy and stuff like that. It's really easy to just not engage with. Like if I didn't like it, I would simply be like, I don't like it, so I don't watch it, and I move on or whatever. But some people get so offended over stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I happen to thought it was pretty good. So
for me, it did what it needed to do, because Star Trek people, I guess probably because they're younger, don't remember. Star Trek was dead before Star Trek 2009. There was no Star Trek at all. Enterprise had ended. Nemesis was a bomb and kind of shitty. And Star Trek 2009 was the jolt it needed to bring Star Trek back. And even if it hasn't dated great, it still happened, and it was a huge box office success and brought Star Trek back. I can go over a lot of the other stuff where I'm not as huge a fan. But I mean, Mission Impossible 3 is solid. I don't have any objection to Mission Impossible 3. I'm looking over anything else. But yeah, still tragic that he passed away at such a young age. And I guess to go over the other big...
I would say it's kind of crazy to think that people, that kidney disease is still so deadly that people are dying from kidney, because it's not an uncommon thing. Like a lot of people know people that have it or have gone through it, and so it's just Yeah.
Well, another thing that I've noticed mainly through my father is that he's been dealing with issues with kidney as a side effect of COVID.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it seems like one of the after effects of COVID, if you get it seriously, is kidney disease. So I'm not saying he had COVID seriously or anything like that, but it's not impossible either. Um, but yeah, speaking of dying young, this one shocked the shit out of me. Like this one surprised me, but then Michelle Trachtenberg,
Yeah. Yeah.
earlier
Actually saw that.
today.
Yeah. I saw that. I was sitting, we were getting our haircut and stuff. I was sitting there reading the news and I saw this pop up and I'm like, I didn't even know that she was sick. Like, I didn't know there was anything wrong with her because I hadn't seen anything in the news. But
Yeah,
to be fair, ever since Buffy ended, I would see her name pop up every once in a while, but I didn't really
yeah,
keep up with anything she was doing. But 39 years old. Wow.
yeah. 39
That's
is wild. Yeah. Jesus Christ. I don't think there's any cause of death released on her yet. I've heard that maybe it was something to do with her liver, but this is speculation.
yeah. Someone was saying
best.
something about a liver transplant.
Yeah,
Like
and
problems with
transplants can
that,
always
so.
be scary. Yeah, and even according to this, it was talking about how she was active on Instagram even though she wasn't well. And it sounds like maybe even that wasn't particularly healthy because it also talks about how she dealt with bullying on Instagram, which, I mean, that is a serious issue I've noticed. Probably the most noteworthy story I remember was Erin Moriarty when she posted that
Yeah.
one picture that I did not think was a good looking picture, but everybody just started talking about how she had plastic surgery and shit after that nonstop. And it was just like, if you actually watch the show, she looks just fine. It just looked like it was an odd picture. But yeah, all of a sudden everybody's just pushing the idea that like that's the thing. It's like unrealistic beauty standards for women. That is really unhealthy.
That got me to that back and forth with the Tim Pool guys, the pop, what was it?
Oh
Pop
no.
Culture Crisis or whatever they are, that group. Because I talked about them pushing this idea of unhealthy beauty standards, and they were kind of mocking me because of that, as if it's not a real thing. I'm like, no, it absolutely is a real thing. Like, you can go and do studies on it. I actually had numbers, and people hate numbers because it's not fun. Numbers aren't fun when you can just say stuff. But I pulled
Yeah.
up the numbers of like the amount of people that deal with body issues, because of unhealthy beauty standards in the industries. And so, yeah, it's one of those things that I've kept my own for years. I used to watch a show called America's Next Top Model, which is
Yeah.
no longer on. But it was Tyra Banks was the host, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of unhealthy beauty standards on that series, and I do believe it affected a generation of people because that show was at one point one of the most popular reality TV shows, and
Yeah.
it affected a lot of ways people looked at their body. But it's not fun to talk about stuff like that. They'd rather just make fun of fat people because that's what they do. So
Yeah, and it's weird because like I always say, like lots of times like different everybody has different body types they prefer. Like there isn't like one universal beauty standard, but women are like, especially actresses and models, they have to conform to this certain image, and it can get really unhealthy, ridiculously unhealthy.
well, the thing is that people want to argue that mental health is something we should focus on instead of violence. Like they're saying, well, it's not these things that kill people, it's mental health. But then when you bring up mental health as like a real thing that people need to address, they sort of brush that off because they want to make fun of people. So it's not ever really about mental health to certain groups of people. They don't even believe that's a thing. They just say it because they don't want to have things taken away from them. So they make up lies about caring about mental health, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. Oh, is it? Oh, hey, edgier than thou. How you doing?
Doing all right. How are y'all?
We were just going over some of the sad stories. I actually want to start with a bright story, but I thought I'd get the sad ones out of the way.
Hey, you started out with a downer.
Trachtenberg.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Michelle Trachtenberg and Roberto Orsi passed away way too young.
Yeah, no, I saw that. That was pretty upsetting.
Yeah. Well, this one really, really young. Like, I don't know. I always get a little freaked out when I see somebody who's passed away who's younger than me. I'm like, because when I heard about that, I was like, I remember her on Buffy. She was the younger one, wasn't she?
She was the little
And
sister. Yeah. She was the little sister.
Yeah. The little sister pops up in season 5. Yes, 5. Yes. Trying to remember my Buffy. It's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, she did a good job there. It's tragic as she passed away.
There's also all the controversy about like how she was treated on set and stuff that she went through.
Oh yeah, the whole Joss Whedon stuff, and she was involved with that, and I still maintain I think Joss Whedon's a good writer, and even a good director, but it doesn't forgive him being a piece of shit. And as far as I've seen, he's not thought twice or looked back and tried to do better. So I'm fine with him not working.
A lot of people believe he's working as a ghostwriter right now, that he's got a pen name and he's making money that way.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know if it's, there's no proof to it, but
I don't know.
They believe that it's so easy to ghostwrite that you can get away with it. So
I mean, at that point though, if he's doing that, like he's basically forfeited almost all of the power that he used to have. So I'm almost like, okay, whatever, like I don't know. It's like one of those things where it's like shitty people, at the end of the day, like, they need to make a living, whatever. And so when it comes to like wealthy or like powerful, writers and stuff like that, if they're losing almost all of the benefits of being like a celebrity writer, director or whatever, I'm kind of like, I don't even care.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's most people's general consensus on it.
Yeah, for sure. And then, the next story is actually more the fun one I had lined up. Last Ronin. Yes, this is the fun one I wanted to open with initially. And I can tell immediately who it is because it says Last Ronin's writer, once 90s April O'Neil actress involved in the movie adaptation. And I know immediately it's Tom Waltz because Last Ronin's written by Tom Waltz and Kevin Eastman. And if it was Kevin Eastman, it would say Kevin Eastman wants it. Because everybody knows that name. But yeah, it's Tom Waltz, and he wants Judith Hoag, who played April O'Neil in the original movie, to come back in the Last Ronin movie. And I didn't even fully realize it's live action. I know they're developing it. I didn't realize it was going to be live action though, which would be cool. And it could kind of serve as a direct sequel to the original movie, which I think is a cool idea because there's lots of parallels between the backstory and the original movie, so I could see that working. Are you guys familiar with Last Ronin?
Vaguely familiar with it. But I recognize all the other names. So
yeah,
like it's just I'm more curious about that. But yeah.
Yeah. Last Ronin, I thought, especially the first run. Last Ronin 2, I think, started strong, but it's not been grabbing me nearly as much. But the first Last Ronin has this great theme of revenge.
I don't think I've seen the second one.
The second one's been coming out. Yeah. I think number 4 just came out a couple weeks ago. And yeah, like I said, it has been thrilling me, but it started strong. But yeah, there's this great story of revenge in the Last Ronin. Spoilers, but it's all about essentially, if you don't know, all the turtles are dead except one, and one has adapted all their weapons to be the last turtle. And it's a mystery until the end of the book who it is. Spoilers, it's Michelangelo. And the backstory is essentially the Foot Clan. When you go through the issues, the Foot Clan has attacked Splinter and severely injured him, and it caused Raphael to go nuts and go on a suicide run.
I mean, this is like Last Ronin came out a few years ago, right? It's been a minute. You said spoilers, but I feel like it's been a few years.
That's why I'm fine kind of going into it why I like it. But yeah, Raphael goes on a suicide run and he kills Karari, who's the head of the Foot Clan at that time, or puts her in a coma for the rest of her life. So essentially she's dead. And then her son decides to hit the turtles, and then he wipes out Leonardo and Casey Jones. And then Donatello and Splinter try to do a peace rally, and that ends up being betrayed, where they die. And that leaves Michelangelo, who is left for dead, but he doesn't die. And April O'Neil, who's terribly maimed, but she's still alive. She's like the one piece that has remained throughout the Last Ronin run. But the first book, I just love the idea of how just revenge, if you just pursue revenge, everybody just winds up dead at the end, which is pretty much what the Last one is. Everybody just winds up dead at the end. But yeah, I really enjoy that story. It's a great one. And I'm really interested to see what they do with this movie. And if they decide to just spawn it after the first movie, I am game. I think that's a really cool idea. You guys have any thoughts?
I'm totally down for something new from the turtle world. Just because I feel like it's been kind of spoiler culture is toxic.
Yeah.
It's been kind of one of those things where they can't decide if they want it to be a kids franchise, if they want it to be an adults franchise. They just don't really know what they want to do with it. What do we think of the Bay era turtle movies? I think there's 2 of them, right? The 2 of the Michael Bay turtle movies.
I don't know. I'm not a fan, but like, I don't know. Like, there's aspects of them I like, but yeah.
I feel like they're fairly inoffensive popcorn movies.
I would
to be
that,
fair.
Yeah.
But there was a little bit of charm, and maybe it's nostalgia for me in the more practical suits that work with like the puppet heads and stuff. And I realized that maybe that's not ideal in today's world. Maybe that's not something they want to do. But making the turtles like the size of the Incredible Hulk probably wasn't like the best thing, to be honest. And I don't know in the comic books if they've ever been depicted that way. I know they're slightly bigger than like a normal person, but not 3 times the size of a human being, which I think is interesting. They went that route with those films. So
now
I'm totally okay with this. Yeah.
I was just going to say it's not that big, but it is described in Last Ronin because Michelangelo is pretty big at that point. And it is described how essentially as they get older, they get stronger and bigger essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're still not as big as they are in the Michael Bay movies. One of the things I like about that movie is like how they make all their characters defined, and I like how they modify their suits to fit their character. And what I don't like is that they go too far with all of them. I feel like it's way over the top. It's like tone it down a little bit. And
so you like the individualism of each turtle, but you think that it pushes it a little bit too far, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay. And
I'm totally down for this. More turtle stuff. I was a big fan of turtles growing up, so I'm okay with
Absolutely. Did you see Mutant Mayhem last year? I think that was last year.
Yeah. I don't know if it was last year, but I did see it.
Yeah. I enjoyed that, and I think if they do maybe if they continue that and just do like kids friendly animated turtles, and then maybe do this, which would definitely be more adult friendly. I think they could exist parallel and work well off each other.
We were really blown away by that animated movie. Like the art style was very cool. I love the risk they're taking with like animated features now. So
absolutely. But yeah,
that's been like the one time where a movie was really successful and Hollywood took the right message from it. Like with with Spider-Verse getting so big, they didn't it was a fear for me at least that they were going to be like, oh, we're just going to do comic style animated movies now forever about everything. And instead it feels like they were like, no, clearly what made this successful was like the animation really fitting the story, and then we get a variety of different like unique and creative animation styles in kids movies. It's great.
I definitely felt like Mutant Mayhem was inspired a lot from like Into the Spider-Verse type stuff, not like directly, but like just kind of doing its own unique spin on it, and it was good. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
I think movies are shifting towards vibes instead of story. So it's like what the movie makes you feel opposed to what the movie is saying to you. Like a lot of people are going on vibes now for a lot of stuff. And I think movies are sort of shifting in that direction, especially ones that are animated. I think animated is really important because it's like a movie's tone if you're talking about live action. But with animated, it's not just the tone, it's also the vibe as well, I think is important. But yeah. Oh, hey Chariot, by the way. I don't know if they're there or not, but
hey there. Hi.
Hey, there you are. I was starting to wonder. I was like, is Chariot?
So I had myself muted there for a second.
That will happen.
I was just listening in. I was never a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kid, so don't have a lot of input.
What? No, I'm sorry. Everybody has to have their favorite turtle on this panel.
When I was okay, well, I like who's the really angry one?
Raphael,
right?
That's my favorite too.
Is the red one? Yeah, he's my favorite. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry. The correct answer is Donatello.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm fully Donatello. That's always
so. It's like it's like 2v2 here. Donatello and Raphael.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful.
I gotta be real honest with you guys. Donatello's a bottom tier turtle for me.
What?
Because I think Mikey's better.
Oh,
so
okay. Well, whenever you have to deal with some sort of phase dimensional event destroying your universe, you're going to want not to.
Well, okay, he's very talented. We don't dispute that he's a talented king. But I just feel like in terms of screen presence,
I think the safe answer is always Leonardo because he's kind of the one that everybody can go, okay, I get it, I understand. The other three, it's always like a battle.
Well, I only know some of their names because my youngest brother was into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. When I was a little kid, we didn't have. I think for a while we actually didn't even have cable. But then the only cartoons that I would like watch for a while were like VHS tapes back when those were a thing. And then like by the time I was a little older, there were like cartoons and stuff that we could watch on TV. But I think by that time, like the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was just kind of like, at most it was on like reruns, like sometimes you'd see like I think Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon did a lot of like old reruns of like older cartoons at the time. But yeah, it wasn't just, I guess I just missed out on it. I watched a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid. Was kind of that was my scene.
Yeah, I was hearing you tell the story, and I was like, I remember when they were being first broadcast.
Do you guys remember Venus DeMilo, the
oh god,
turtle?
Oh my god!
There was a fifth one that was Venus. I think it was on a Nickelodeon version of like the Turtles. It was like a live action thing.
It is one they try to forget about. Yes, the girl turtle, which I mean they've actually done plenty since then.
Is that a Renaissance artist?
Wait, okay, is this just fan art, or did they actually like give her boob shells?
I think she has
that's
boob
part of the
shells on
issue.
show.
She has boob shells. Yes.
Oh dear God. Okay.
Here, I feel after this we kind of need to show the audience. I mean,
I'm sorry I brought it up. I didn't mean to break anybody's turtle happiness today. But
jeez, I remember now because like all the turtles are named after Renaissance artists. Venus DeMilo is the statue of Aphrodite. It's that famous statue where the arms are broken off.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I think they change her name later on in the
after.
series. I can't remember, but I think she starts going by a different name because of that. She doesn't want to be called Venus.
Well, she should be called like something to do with like a Renaissance artist, like the other ones. I feel like.
Just why with the boobs though?
It's probably I can see the executives sitting around a table thinking they're cooking with this one. It's like, oh yeah, we'll give her boobs and yeah.
Yeah.
That
was a rough patch in Turtles history.
Yeah,
what were her weapons?
That's a decision.
I don't know. I never watched Next Mutation because it looked awful, and from all understanding, it was awful.
Wait,
yeah,
was
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, is that long hair or is that part of her mask?
I think it's part of the mask.
It's the mask.
It does kind of look like it's blue hair.
It looks like braided hair. So I was
it looks like it's supposed to look like hair. Yeah. I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, I get being like, hey, it's a boys' club. Let's get a girl turtle in there. But not like this, guys. No.
But I mean, isn't that what April's character is supposed to represent? Is like that dichotomy between like the crazy guys and then you have this level-headed lady in the pack.
Yeah, it does seem like what they were doing.
But also, like, turtles are by their very nature pretty darn androgynous. You could easily, if you're just doing like a reboot series, like just make one of them a girl.
Yeah,
like,
you could.
Like at that, especially at the point in time when like every superhero team or whatever had like one token girl character. Like it feels like people would have complained about it for like a week and then stopped caring.
Well, I mean, that's what they did with, like, in the comic books, there's multiple girl turtles now, and they just look like the guys. You really
yeah. I mean,
tell.
it makes sense, right?
They might dress a little different, but that's about it. Yeah.
I mean, they might as well have just made her like super sexy. Go ahead and pull the waist in more, give her a thong. Like, I mean, if you're gonna go that
reduce
far,
the shell so she has huge cleavage.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well just go ahead and cater to all of it, I guess.
Yeah, and without Corey Feldman, it's no Turtles, guys.
Yeah, make her weapon a whip, give her a dominatrix background, and just go ahead and do the whole thing. Like,
that would be hilarious.
That's where the Bay movies were headed.
Yes.
Well, that I think that would have been like a controversial amount of sexiness, right? In the 90s,
No.
right?
No.
I think
For
in the
a
90s they
children's
could.
cartoon?
I think in the 90s they could have got away with a lot more than now, to be honest.
Yeah.
Wow.
They could have cut like a little like hole in her shell here.
I
for
mean,
Uber
Yeah.
Milk.
Yeah.
remember
That's
Rogue's
so
ass?
wrong.
You don't remember
That's
Rogue's
so
ass from
wrong.
the 90s? Rogue's ass from the 90s, remember? So,
Yeah, Rogue's ass.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Turtle ass shot. Well, you can't actually see her butt anyway because the shell is going to cover it up. Well, they surprised they give her like a smaller shell, so they
here we
give her
go.
a better ass on it. There we go. Yeah, that one. That's it.
That I think it's like an outro that Dane uses where it's got the
Yes.
Rogue cosplayer twerking. That lives in my head rent free. That and the She-Hulk twerk.
Yes.
It's hard to believe that was like 1 or 2 frames of a cartoon, and they just kind of latched on. to
Yeah.
that. It's pretty.
Yeah,
hilarious.
if you watch the rest of that series, like her ass just looks normal, and then just
Yeah.
one frame when she's fighting Apocalypse, it's not even like she's like laying down seductively for Gambit or something.
It would make
She's
a lot
fighting
more sense if it was
Apocalypse.
one of like those X-Men
Yeah.
swimsuit edition things where they were
Yeah.
like, the point was to look like super sexy, but she's fighting Apocalypse. He just like tosses her to the fucking ground, and she's all of
Yeah.
a sudden like a double Pete shot there in the butt, you know.
Yeah. I could just picture one of those like the quote unquote real fans who are like definitely not a bunch of alt-right shitheads. Like just
Yeah, sure.
they hear a new X-Men production is coming out, so they pull up like I don't know, like a ton of like clips of the old show, and they just go frame by frame through it to find the best butt shot. That has to be because there's no like when we watch the clip of the scene, it happens so fast
Mm-hmm.
that it's like you almost don't even really notice it in motion. So
Yeah.
you'd have to be pausing. Like that's real gooner behavior.
When I saw the chuds pulling it up on like thumbnails and stuff, I'm like, where does this even come from? I had to like think back to where the shot was from.
I thought that frame was like a meme or something, and that's why it like because I could have sworn that it was something that was established for long enough in like internet culture or whatever that people did think that was what the original show was like, you know.
Yeah.
Like I think there were probably a lot of people who had seen that image before, and so then when they were like, wait, this doesn't look like that meme, you know, like they were more primed to get on board with it. Like a lot of those people will do that, like where they'll go frame by frame and they'll like search for, you know, one sentence in the lore that contradicts or whatever, but I don't think this was an example of that.
Right.
I could be wrong, but
Here's a story I had saved in here. I don't know if I have much to say about it because this guy's kind of this is a guy I used to enjoy, but now he's gone. Zachary Levi says supporting Trump was more important than saving my career. Hollywood is falling apart and won't be creating jobs for me in the few years anyway.
I mean, it could have something to do with the fact that your agent keeps putting you in the worst movies ever made, like Harold and the Purple Crayon.
are you
and
seriously going to shit talk passion projects like that?
So, like, he's literally being tossed in the worst things, and then he's in that, what is it, The Unbreakable Boy, I think is the most recent thing that he did, and that also didn't perform well. I mean, look, it could be a combination of the fact that he's just kind of ruined his own career by doing dumb shit. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why this has happened. But he also has he gets cast in a lot of movies where he plays like an adult child. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but like he's in a lot of films where the character is either an adult that acts like a kid or a literal child. It's just
that's good casting, though. I mean,
can I
based
wait? Okay,
on what we're seeing?
Hey.
Can I give a hot take on Zachary Levi?
Yeah,
because
Sure.
And to be clear, this is something like everybody recommended Chuck to me for like years and years and years and years, and then probably like 6 months before he started making headlines in this way or whatever, I was like, whatever, fine, I'll watch it. And I think that show's like ass, and that's like the thing that everybody loves from Zachary Levi. They're like,
I enjoyed it,
Chuck.
but I don't even know if I could rewatch it now because I know 2 of the actors on it are assholes.
It's just like it
also has
this
Adam
whole...
Baldwin.
I only watched like the first couple seasons of it, but the like romantic subplot in that whole show is centered around is like the most unconvincing shit I've ever seen. I hated it so goddamn much.
True.
When people were like, "Oh man, I guess we have to give up Chuck because Zachary Levi sucks now," I was like, "Easy, done. It's gone out of my brain.
Yeah.
I don't care."
I just don't. I don't have much positive to say about him. I mean, he was fairly inoffensive as an actor to me back when the first Shazam movie came out. I'm like, he's just a regular guy. Like, there's nothing special about him or whatever. And then I guess he just decided that it was time for him to start spouting conspiracy theories about vaccines and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, I guess. I talked about it on my podcast where I thought, like, I made comments. Right, exactly. I had comments from other people on the panel that I was doing where they didn't believe it was going to end his career. And I'm like, no, this is it. Like, he's too wackadoodle. And I mean that in the most cartoon way possible. Like, just, he's off the rails. And this is not good for him. People seem to think there's some immunity for actors when they say stuff. And yes, when you get to a certain level of prestige, you can get away with doing a lot of things. But Zachary Levi was not at that level of prestige where he could just start doing like career tanking things and sort of circumvent the system. Like, it just doesn't work that way. So, well, if he feels this way about it, he can start wearing a MAGA hat, I guess, and peddling to, you know, that community if he wants. It's fine, whatever. Working for Angel Studios, I guess.
I mean, he's full on like, so I just the whole like Hollywood is, or like, you know, it's fine, I'm taking my career or whatever, because like the world is gonna fall apart if I don't support Trump or whatever. It's just so fucking great. Like, just a level of like privilege and removal from reality that I aspire to.
Well, I do think this quote is interesting. What I, and it's, of course, Zachary Levi. What am I really afraid of at the end of the day? That I'm somehow going to lose jobs in the industry that I won't already believe is completely falling apart, and he's talked about because of endorsing Trump, and that I won't even be creating jobs for me. That won't even be creating jobs for me in a few years anyway, which is of course bullshit. You know, they're getting rid of the white man in Hollywood. The shit these idiots push. But the next line is really interesting. Like, come on, if I lose all my acting career, and I hope I don't, and so far I haven't, but none of that matters. The world goes off a cliff. What does it matter? So I think it's interesting. So like, he's even pretty much admitting here, oh yeah, it hasn't really affected me. I'm crying and whining, but like,
let's unpack really that whole thing, really. I mean, like, he's basically suggesting that we are at the end of the world. Like, he's saying that things are just completely over. So what does supporting Trump have to do with any of that? To be honest, like, it doesn't have anything to do with it. If you truly believe the world is on a path, on a downward spiral, and there's no saving it, then why do anything at all? Like, what's the point of any of it? Like, what's the point of any activism? Why do you care about vaccines if the world is ending tomorrow? Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, he's doing all of this stuff, trying to change culture, but he's saying here that culture is going off a cliff. So,
well, it's the same cult shit. They're like, oh yeah, the world is falling apart. Nobody can do anything except Trump. He can magically fix it all. Like, it's just hero worship shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's so strange.
Yeah, I've never seen a guy who was a mainstream actor who seemed more destined to be like a Daily Wire B-lister. It almost feels like he knows that that's his ultimate fate.
Yeah, he's gonna be the podcaster on Daily Wire. He's gonna be doing one of their movies for Lady Ballers 2, starring Zachary Levi.
Oh,
you know
what
I mean?
Like, but like that's the thing that I always try to tell people about this kind of conservative conspiracy theory stuff. Is it really does rot your brain. You get into this mode where you can't even like tell what's real anymore, and you also can't tell where the line is. Like the Gina Carano thing, where she was saying a lot of bad stuff. Like the anti-vax stuff was really bad, especially for the time that she was saying it. I think if you made a comment like that publicly now and then you just moved on, people would be like, "Wow, that was weird." Anyway, but like when she made those posts on Instagram with like Holocaust imagery. Yes. I feel like that was the moment where people were like, nah, you gotta go. Like, if you don't know that that's across the line, what are you gonna say next? You're gonna go on like some talk show and drop the N-word. This lady's
it was so it was so bizarre because if to refresh the audience memory, essentially what she said was she equated being Republican or conservative to being a Holocaust victim.
Right. The same thing that people in her circle claimed didn't happen. See the cognitive dissonance there? So the same group that would believe in what she is saying also denies that the Holocaust even happened. So how can you compare yourself to something that your group believes didn't happen?
Yeah, or denies part of it, which is usually how a lot
Right.
of the Holocaust denialism kind of presents itself. Like they're not all like Mike Enoch. A lot of them are just like, you know, like they'll say, well, the Holocaust did happen, but like disabled people or trans people had nothing to do with it, or they quote a number that's wrong or something.
Exactly. And it's just weird though that they would even use that she would even use that as an example if there's even a portion that believes that it wasn't as big or a problem as it was. Because I mean their whole thing is they downplay the numbers. You know what I mean? They say, oh, the numbers are very skewed, and that's their argument. So if that's the argument, then why are you making such a radical comparison to something that you're downplaying? Even if you're a denier to the sense that like, oh, it's just the numbers that are different. That's just such a fucking dumb comparison. I also believe, and this is being completely serious here, I think a lot of the issues that we have right now, especially with a lot of celebrities and people that we hear with platforms, is undiagnosed emotional and mental issues that they probably need some professional help with. And I'm not trying to diagnose anybody, but I'm saying, like, speak to someone. If you're having these kinds of thoughts where, like, the world doesn't make sense to you, there are places you can go to sort of sort that out. Like, it's not the most difficult thing. You just have to admit to yourself that you need it. And I think the issue is it's been stigmatized, particularly by this community, the one we're talking about here. It's been stigmatized by them to the point where people feel like they don't need it because they've been told that things like autism is fake. You know what I mean? So it's like, they just, everything to them is some big conspiracy theory. It's the most brain rotted shit I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why like the concept of toxic masculinity kind of really came from like communities of men who are like, we feel like we are being taught a bunch of things about how to be a man that is not constructive to our mental health and to healthy relationships. And you know, then that kind of got mainstreamed by like a lot of pop feminist discourse and stuff. But you know, people talk about it like there's just no difference to them. Like you know, and I don't want to generalize too bad, but you know, just the way you hear some of these guys talk about like being a man is crazy. It's crazy stuff. Like personally, some of the stuff that you hear about how they think you should talk to women, I would have not been received very well by the women in my family. I come from a family with pretty strong women, and I cannot imagine talking to women like that. That's crazy.
Did you see the JD Vance clip where he said that they're men because they drink beer and tell jokes to each other? That's what makes them men. And I'm
that. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I cannot stress this enough.
I went to anime club with a lot of guys who looked like that and talked like that. And I got to be honest, like, bro should stay in his Magic the Gathering ass lane. Like I believe in that. That's a good. I like that community. It's good. I play that game. I have like 10 commander decks. I would play him, except he's a bad guy. So
I cannot stress this enough. If you're having issues talking to women, talk to them like you would a friend. That's it. It's not
any other human being. Like if you're talking to them like I think, and this might be a hot take, I think meme culture has destroyed a lot of communications that people used to have, social communications, because we've gotten so used to like sharing pictures of people, you know, and making fun of them, that it's kind of transcended a little bit of like the general conversations people used to have with each other. So
yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking there's something else I want to say about this, but I am brain farting on it right now. But I will say, guys, we got 120 people watching. Like and subscribe. We got Eric Debunks, Eric's Reloaded. We got Edgier Than Thou. We got Chariot. Make sure to visit their channels. Give them subs. Give them likes. They need them all. And then
all of your subs will be mine.
All the subs.
Hell yeah.
All your subs belong to mine. So I guess this brings us to the articles. Ooh, got somebody else joining the chat? Oh, hey, Nothing But Media. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, everybody.
He needs some subs and likes as well. Nothing But Media. Make sure to visit him as well.
Yep, 100.
Up and down my lap. But yes, so we ready to talk about some Rob Liefeld?
Sure, let's do it.
So, Captain America, Brave New World. This was posted from Cosmic Marvel, which I don't even know who they are, and blue check marks.
It's one of the many various like repeat news sites there are out there. So.
Yeah, Captain America: Brave New World has earned $7.2 million yesterday at the domestic box office. It is an 82.4% drop from the film's domestic, and then it's cut off from show more, naturally. It's from the opening day. So they're comparing the second Friday to opening day, which is always a solid drop-off when you do that. When I was looking into this, I found a Marvel movie with almost 84% drop-off when we compare second Friday to opening day. Do you want to guess what that movie is?
Is it an MCU movie?
Yeah.
Captain America: The First Avengers. That's my guess.
I would say it's just a general MCU movie. Like it's not a Captain America movie.
No.
Oh, damn it!
I have no idea. Then I don't know which one it is. Go ahead and tell us.
It is Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, these are just metrics that This is part of why the chuds like to focus on this box office budget crap, because there's so many ways to twist the numbers to make something sound unsuccessful.
Right.
Fact is, Captain America: Brave New World was a modestly budgeted movie, and it looks like it's going to make its money back and bring in some profit. It's that simple. It doesn't need to shatter any records or anything.
I mean, it's already now it's almost at 300 million worldwide. It only needs 420 to basically make back all of its money. So
yeah,
it'll get there. Plus, people are waiting to watch it at home. Yes. And they count those numbers now as revenue, so it'll make more money on streaming as well.
That's another thing that drives me nuts. They will pretend like the movie makes money at box office, and it doesn't make any money after that ever again. And it's like, no, there's going to be digital sales, there's physical sales.
Did you guys realize that when it goes to home streaming, apparently, when it's at the $20 price point, like $20 to $25 price point, that counts towards box office numbers, not home streaming numbers. Yeah. Someone was telling me that like because it's considered early access, so it's not actually the normal VOD sales. So some of that counts towards the overall budget of the movie. It won't show up on something like Box Office Mojo, but Disney will announce the numbers. Like
I mean, the thing that gets me about all this is that it's all a greater part of their business anyway. Like it's not like Disney only look at the one metric and say, well, this is a failure. They look at how much money they spent and how much money they made. So this never takes, I mean, obviously box office is important on a single film, but not really on franchises, because Disney, they're selling toys off this, they're selling T-shirts.
True.
There's all the merchandising, which this film is basically an advert for. And that's never factored in. And obviously, from a cinematic point of view, there's no need to factor it in. But it's not like you're making a one-off film where there isn't merchandising and it's all counts. Like Nosferatu, for example, they didn't do any toys based on that film, which maybe they should have. It was
I want to say this also. There's a couple of things to unpack from all of this with this Rob Liefeld quote and just the general consensus about all this. So last week, I don't know if it was on this stream or it was one of my streams, because I'm everywhere, but I talked about the budget being released as 180. Like that was what everybody was running with. It was a $180 million movie. Like we're talking about the actual trades. So like Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, all of these outlets were running with that number. And people were saying that they were lying about it. And I did a little bit of digging. And I found out that if they were lying about that, it's illegal. Because they get tax breaks for where they film. They get incentives for where they film. If they publicly give a number different than the number that they gave to the government to get those tax breaks, they would get sued into oblivion and they would lose those tax breaks. So that number has to be real, because if it's fake, they have lied. So a lot of these channels that are telling you that these release numbers that come out officially from like the trades is a lie. It can't be a lie, because we would see lawsuits popping up about them getting sued for getting tax rebates because they base it on the number of the production budget of the movie. So that number has to be real.
Isn't the production budget as well pre-tax incentives?
That I don't know for sure.
I'm remembering from, because a couple of years ago, there was a movie where some of the information about the tax breaks got released. Yeah. And it's I'm sure the budget that they give is the amount of money they actually spent up front.
I think you're right, especially if it's international stuff. If it's international stuff, it has to be that way. I don't know if it has to be that way, it's state to state, but I think you're right about that. The other thing, though, is that anything that is a product placement is a massive benefit to the movie. So, for example, Harley Davidson and a couple of other different companies put vehicles into the James Bond franchise. You know how much money that ended up saving the film and production budget? $40 to $50 million of that budget came from like Harley Davidson and all the BMW and all these different companies that pump money into these studios productions to get their products in these films. And that stuff isn't always public knowledge. We don't know how much a company paid Marvel to have their soda can in a scene or something like that. It could be $10 million. We don't know. So getting wrapped up in these kinds of numbers is such a weird thing for the fandom to do. I understand if you're somebody that is interested in box office numbers, like if that's what you do for a living and, you know, or you're somebody that invested in this film and you're worried about your return. I get all of that. But what we never see them talking about realistically, unless the movie does well, like say Captain Marvel or Barbie, the only time they ever discuss the legitimate quality in art, like literal things that they should be discussing, only happens if something overperforms and does well. If a movie financially does poorly or does not do expectations, all of a sudden, that's it. That's all they talk about is the numbers. I don't think about this stuff. When I leave a movie, I'm thinking about how much I like the movie. I'm not thinking about how much money the investors are making off the film. That doesn't even factor into my concept of quality. It just doesn't.
Well, I mean, I'm not even sure how many of these guys actually are, I guess, the grifters we usually look at. I'm not even sure how many of them even watch the movie because all their reviews are such surface level stuff that get basic facts wrong all the time. Pretty much all of them seem to be like that.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the grifter sphere is getting worse and worse as far as the details go. Because I don't think you were planning on covering it, but a few of them released videos based on a news report in one of our least reputable newspapers, The Sun, saying that Doctor Who was going to be cancelled and it was going to go into a 10-year hiatus.
I heard about that.
Like it did before. And within a couple of days, the BBC released an official statement saying it's not the case. It's not true. They're not going to cancel it because, again, even if very few people are watching it in the UK, it's the marketing potential, it's the worldwide. We've got TV shows. We've got a few murder mysteries which have been going. One has been going for over 20 years now, and they only make 3 or 4 episodes a year.
I think I know. What is the name of it?
Midsummer Murders.
Yes, we watched that here.
Yeah.
We watched it on Amazon.
I heard of that.
Well, it isn't. It doesn't get huge viewing figures here, and I don't think it gets huge viewing figures in the US. But there are several European and Asian countries where it does so well that they basically fund its production. So the only reason they keep making them is because places like Czechia or Norway really love the show.
Yeah.
And that's something that the BBC will know.
So Andy here says, if it's filmed in the US, I don't think they have to publicly release a budget. They don't, but they did. That's the thing is nobody is in, like, there's a lot of times we don't know the budget of a movie till like either a day before the movie comes out or sometimes after the movie comes out, they'll tell us what the budget is. Sometimes it's all speculation. Sometimes we never get a public announcement. And I would say that a lot of times budgets, especially for movies that aren't Marvel or DC, we only have speculatory numbers. We don't know 100%. It's always just like how much people think that it costs based on XYZ. But if they actually release a number to the public and that number is different from the number that they used to get a discount or tax credit or something like that, if they do that, they would end up in court. That's the thing. And a lot of people will never discuss that. If I were to go out and basically commit fraud, which is what they would be doing, by releasing a number different publicly than the number that I gave to the tax collector or something like that, I would get in trouble for it. It's the same for any major studio. And they're so big, they can't fly under the radar. This would be a massive scandal if they found out that Disney and Marvel were just releasing numbers that weren't real. It would be a big problem because they get tax rebates on every movie they make.
And then I also, in our Andy C one here, I wanted to comment on this because it's fiction. Part of the point is that it's a tough opponent for him to overcome. Don't you think the T-1000 should have easily defeated the T-800? That's how fiction works.
I actually love conversations about stuff like this. I wish more discourse was about stuff like this, because I think this is as a fan, this is the kind of stuff I like to discuss. The answer is whoever's writing it determines who the winner is. That's what
That's what Stan Lee said. Yeah.
Yeah. But for me, you want the underdog story, right? I mean, every one of these movies is like some hero that is not as powerful as the villain. They have these odds that are all against them, and they have to do everything they can to win. Why is it when it comes to stuff that's like a social discourse that we get so literal about it? Why is that? Why can't we just enjoy the fantasy aspect of something for what it is, instead of worrying about things like this? And Andy, I'm not coming down on you about this. I'm not, but I'm just saying, like, the discourse around, like, could Red Hulk beat a regular person? Maybe, but Red Hulk doesn't exist in the real world. Nobody's flying around with wings and a shield either. So you have to sort of suspend disbelief. That's part of the enjoyment of these things. And that's gone. It's kind of disappeared because these chud channels try to view everything objectively.
Yeah.
And they've kind of poisoned the well for people who want to enjoy things. I think that's one of the biggest losses we've had, is the wonder and surprise that we all had loving these things growing up, that have turned into a bunch of bitter old people yelling at clouds.
That's why I always found it weird. The first time I heard the term power scaling referring to superhero films, I just thought, well, I didn't know what it was at first, but obviously pretty easy to work out. And I just thought, well, why has this ever mattered? When has it ever been the case that we need to know that this character has been slightly depowered in this film, but they were powered up in the previous film, or they're powered up in the next film? I don't really care.
Yeah, and the general public doesn't either. That's the thing is I think there are pockets of people that care about that stuff, and more power to you. If you guys love looking at things that way, that is absolutely fine. But to assume that a movie can't tell an underdog story because there's such an unsurmountable odds against the hero, that's literally the hero's journey. That is a basic fundamental aspect of storytelling. You root for the underdog.
It's never applied retroactively to the films they love, where we've seen characters who get shot and walk it off, and who go through horrendous
Die Hard.
Yeah.
How does he beat everybody in that building? How does he do that after walking on glass and all the shit he goes through? He still manages to win. That's unbelievable, but nobody questions that.
And how does he do it 3 more times? What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, like
4.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's happened so many times. I don't see people complaining, well, how did that happen to him so many times? Oh my God, it's unbelievable. Like, we don't have those kinds of discussions. That's why the pedantic objectification of fantasy material is so strange to me, as somebody that loves movies and TV shows and still loves movies and TV shows. Like, you have to suspend disbelief. And I know that's hard for people to do, but these chud guys who have no imagination, they don't have anything happening up here. They have to have you believe that you're supposed to be mad that things happen magically.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine the internet discourse around a film like Jaws, where everybody would have been saying, well, of course, in history, no shark that big has ever been recorded.
Yeah.
Or screaming sharks. If you're going back to, remember the shark that screamed in, like, I think it was Jaws 3 or something?
I mean, going back to Captain America, I could make the argument, we have a Captain America here who has lots of tech and skills that he is familiar with, going against a Red Hulk who's just firstborn, has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
There's an experience differential there for sure.
So, Lucifer, like I said earlier, I like conversations like that with other fans that are looking at it from the aspect of this is all for fun. But that discourse has turned into objectively, this character can beat that character, and therefore there's no discussion to be had. That's where I draw the line. I think that's really dumb. But I don't mind having fan discussions about who would win between Superman and the Hulk, and we can have a discussion about who does this, who does that, as fans of the thing we're talking about. But that's not what's happened. The channels have turned it into like a major discourse that now takes the fantasy element out of it, and that's what I don't appreciate.
I remember reading JLA back in the day, and the far off future world where Darkseid took over the world and Batman defeated him. It's like, shit happens. It all depends what
Batman defeated the Hulk in a crossover comic. So I mean, it's like, what are we doing? You know what I mean?
And before, real quick, I wanted to go over, somebody got a super chat a little while ago, and I forgot. I thought at first Zachary seemed like a good, quirky actor who seemed to give his all, even in the script was bad. Now I just cringe. I agree. And thank you for the super chat, whoever.
There was a dumb charm to him that I think people apply to actors like Chris Pratt and stuff, where it's like sort of the, that kind of guy. And that's fine. You can like that kind of stuff. But once you start telling me that vaccines are going to cause my head to mutate into a dinosaur, like, I'm done. Like, have a nice day.
I think I just assumed that it was like a bit, because like like when an actor does stuff like that, like usually in my experience, at least growing up, like when adult, like fully grown, mature actors with real careers were in children's movies, they were like, oh, we're doing it for the kids, whatever, it's gonna be fun. It's like, what was that? I forget what he was in, but Christopher Lee was in a couple children's movies. I think was he
Witch
in the
Mountain.
Wallace and Gromit movie?
He was,
Witch
in the
Mountain.
original
He's
Witch
in
Mountain films.
the remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He's in a bunch of stuff, and he's silly. But that's the thing, is like the Zachary Levi thing is like, oh, I'm not getting roles that are prestigious enough for me. Christopher Lee was in a ton of bad films.
He's brilliant, and he has a fabulous time in Gremlins 2 as Dr. Catheter.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
sometimes you like a good actor in a bad film. Sometimes
I saw just recently Christopher Lee in the second Red Brown Captain America movie from 1979. I think it was a TV movie. Fucking awful movie. And Christopher Lee doesn't have much of a role, but he does what he can with it. And sometimes actors do bad movies.
He's in that one movie. It's like a werewolf movie.
Oh yeah, I forget the name of it.
It's like that terrible B movie. He was in like a couple dozen films exactly like that.
I'd say more than that. I think he's got about 400 different credits, and probably about 200 of them are terrible. And I think he would be the first to admit it. But then that's from a different time when actors who were struggling would take any roles. I mean,
Howling 2? Is it Howling 2? Is that
Howling? Yeah.
Oh yes, yes, that's familiar.
Oh my, yeah, he's the werewolf hunter. He's got such a quirked up presence in that film. But yeah, no, like Andy, you're or Ryan, you're completely right. I don't know why I called you Andy there. What part of that? Who's Andy? Where did I get that from?
I don't know.
Just out of nowhere. I'm sorry, Ryan. Anyway, you're completely right. Because it is exactly like that. Like, well, I don't know. I mean, when I was younger, I was in theater, and I feel like the cool thing, the actors who you want to be around are always the ones who are just happy to be there, and they're happy to be on stage, and they want to do cool stuff, and they want to be in the role and in the production. Every person I knew who was ever like, I can't believe she got that role and I didn't, and I wanted to be Lady Macbeth, and she is just a freshman. That happened in the production of Macbeth that I did like stage stuff for. And I remember just being like, guys, can you chill the fuck out? It's a high school play. Like, don't be so self-important.
Well, again, that was the sort of attitude to acting that I think some actors certainly don't have that same feeling about. People like Levi, who not only would they take roles in films they knew were terrible because they always wanted to be working, but they would still give their all. I mean, I don't think it's a recent change. I think there's plenty of actors who still take roles in films just because they want a role in a film. But you don't know who gets to see that film. People like Tarantino, who then ended up casting people like Robert Forster and all the older actors that he ended up casting, that did Michael Parks, whose films he watched as a kid and gave them. And I mean, even Travolta. He gave Travolta a second career. So you never know who's going to watch a film and then grow up to be the next Tarantino.
Yeah,
I think it kind of reminds me of Michael Caine when he was told by a fan, "Hey, I saw Jaws 4 and it was awful." And Michael Caine's like, I haven't seen it, but I did see the house it bought and it was beautiful.
Well, I want to pull back into the Rob Liefeld aspect of this or whatever, where he says get fired
because we haven't gone to the main topic.
Yeah. I don't think Rob Liefeld is someone that should be telling anybody like how to move on. This is the same guy who did not actually create the Deadpool that everyone loves. Like the Deadpool that everybody loves was a work of a lot of different people over years that did not include Rob Liefeld. At the very most,
Rob Liefeld created a ripoff of Deathstroke.
Yeah. And so we're in a situation where, and then I think it was like maybe 2 months ago, he made the post where he was mad at Marvel because of the whole Deadpool and Wolverine thing. And so he's already got like a chip on his shoulder about Kevin Feige and Marvel. So of course he's going to say something dumb. But the thing about it is, we posted that video, or you guys posted the one. I think I reacted to it myself, but then you guys also watched it, where Stan Lee basically massacres Rob Liefeld's career. Like where he's saying, "Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Why do you draw it this way?" It was just hilarious.
That's the one where they kind of draw together and
with Todd McFarlane. Yeah,
he is just trolling them.
But yeah, like it's one of those things where, how are you going to tell someone they're not capable of doing their job when their career is 5, 6, 10 times over what you've ever done in your life? It just, Rob Liefeld's got some iconic stuff, but I'll be honest, I don't like his artwork. I never have. No. I've always felt like he's a knockoff Todd McFarlane, and I don't like his designs. He was making comics in an era where everything was as edgy and gory and violent as it could possibly be. And so he got a pass for that, but he's not great. He's got some good shots here and there where he's drawing stuff, but for the most part, he's not great. I'm sorry. He's just not.
Yeah. Todd McFarlane, like, I don't think he's a great storyteller, but I think he's a solid artist. Like, his art looks cool, especially for the time period. It was like the art for the time period. Liefeld,
I just saw that. That black bar is out of pocket. Whoever did that. That's wild.
But
I think
this and think, oh yeah, I nailed it.
What I think this is Liefeld trying to sort of feel his way around the grifter sphere, not doing a very good job about it because he doesn't really know what he's doing.
No.
So, I mean,
this is the guy who created crappy Deadpool that not everybody knows, who's an artist who wasn't a particularly good artist, and he's saying the most successful producer of all time should stop producing and step down.
And to go after Feige as well when Fantastic Four is right around the corner and everybody is feeling pumped about it, I think he's just incredibly misplaced. He's got to do what the other grifters do: attack the surefire things, but not the people behind them.
Well, Dumb and Dumber, this is the thing. Like, I don't think Kevin Feige is even remotely in the bubble of like, we need to get rid of this guy. Like, I think that's just this weird thing that chuds are going after. Because anytime a movie has underperformed, it's not because of any decisions that he's made. It's because of either, like, we had the writer's strike, we've had issues with like some of the actors not connecting with the audience, things like that. He gives a lot of freedom to his directors to do things, so he's overseeing that. But literally what will probably happen, and this is the way it's going to work, is directors and writers and actors who don't, or projects that don't work, they will never come back, or they'll be used sparingly throughout the MCU, and Kevin Feige will continue on, because I have news for you. The next 2 Avengers movies are guaranteed to be billion-dollar movies. So,
and that's the thing,
reality of it.
And there's someone else we're going to talk about soon that's on this chart, but here's the top 10 most successful producers of all time. And I want you to look at these numbers. So number 2, David Heyman, 13.9 billion. Kevin Feige, number 1. 31.1.
Look at the gap in that. Look at the gap in the amount of money that is there. I mean, that
is a staggering difference.
Look at Kathleen Kennedy at number 3.
Yeah, well, she might be coming up fairly soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the fact that this guy went.
Jump scare. Thank you.
The fact that the guy who can't draw thinks that, the most successful producer of all time should step down. It just blows my mind.
I think it's interesting to me, the comments made about people perfecting their craft. I will be straight up. I think Todd McFarlane's earlier drawings, I like them more, because there wasn't that over design aspect to it. As he's gotten older, he's gone further into the over design stuff, and that's not really my thing. I actually like my favorite artists are the ones that are a bit more like simple in the way they draw, but the composition of their art is better, I think. So like, I look at people like Jim Lee. Jim Lee does more complex character drawings, but his actual his designs are more palatable for me. You know what I mean? Whereas Rob Liefeld will throw a million pockets on a character. And it's like, that's not a design. What are we doing here? You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it.
Pocket man.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And of course, real quick, there was somebody else who chimed in on this as well.
Yeah, this is somebody who is navigating the Chud space very well. I think Beau DeMayo is one phone call away from being a regular on Friday Night Tights, I'm sure.
It wouldn't surprise me, which is disappointing. But it seems like he's he's a creep. I don't know how else to say it.
It's weird as well because they all hated the idea of X-Men 97 going in.
Yes.
Quickly changed their tune when they actually saw that it was popular. And then this guy is, again, he's outside, pissing in now.
Yeah.
And I don't care what he's got to say.
Yeah.
I also think it's weird that he posted his video. He uploaded the video to YouTube that was originally on his OnlyFans because he realized that people were not going to sign up for his OnlyFans to watch a 30-minute video of him talking about his time on X-Men 97. And I'll be honest, I don't blame them. I mean, what are the chances that you're like, first of all, how are you going to explain that to somebody? Like, I'm going to sign up for this person's OnlyFans when we know what the stigma is around OnlyFans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to, like, I'm going to tell my husband or wife or partner or whatever, like, hey, I got to sign up for OnlyFans for this guy because he's got a video about his time with X-Men 97 and Marvel, you know? On top of that, you don't know what you're going to get. Like, you could get, like, dong. You could, like, open it up and there's penis in your face. You don't know. You have no clue. So eventually, and I mean, some people don't care about that. I'm sure some people will be like, yeah, I'm signing up for it today. But he ended up uploading it to YouTube like a couple months after the fact. So he's still sort of, I don't necessarily want to say grifting because it is sort of his experience, but he is definitely surfing on the outrage of what happened with X-Men 97. And he's still trying to do it. Cause I watched that video and I'm like, wait, this is old news. This is from like November or something.
And I do think it's interesting because he probably could have done better if he just put it on YouTube and just member blocked it if he wanted to subscribe.
100%. But the fact he wanted to send people to his OnlyFans was the sketchy part. When that happened, I was like, wait, does he want us to see ass? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
He wants to show up, like drop
If
his,
I click on this and get a giant dong, I'm going to be upset, okay?
I was like, hold on. I'm not a prude, but I didn't sign up for that. But if you do, if you pay for his OnlyFans, I guess you did sign up for that. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. So, look,
dumbasses
Vermin out here.
With space.
I subscribed to Beau DeMayo's OnlyFans. Geez, were you curious about the video he posted? What video? Yeah.
He did a video? What?
Well, he claims there's nothing like super like prawn on there. Like it's just basically shirtless pictures, stuff like that. But I wouldn't take a chance on it. And I'm certainly not going to pay money to hear him explain why things went sour with Marvel. Like I don't, it's not that important to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he got like I guess I haven't seen his OnlyFans, so I can't say. But just the like profile pic and like the stuff that I have seen of him, if he got like a nicer camera, I bet because that's a lot of what it is. Yeah, I bet like, you know, he could clean himself.
They want the
up.
4K resolution.
Yeah, well, I was thinking like a leather daddy outfit because he's got kind of like the facial hair and he's got kind of he could pull it off.
Have you been like on his Twitter? He posts like a bunch of like sexy pictures, like thirst traps and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. Just as my assumption of this, and I know we're like spiraling here, but I feel like if you're going to post that kind of stuff for free on Twitter, what am I getting? What am I paying for on X? If it's not the next level of that, you know what I mean? Like if you're showing me like, you know, daddy down, shirt off, like, you know, that kind of thing on for free, then what am I ordering? What am I paying for on the other stuff? And that's the question a lot of people have been asking. Like, if it's not the next level, there's no point in paying for it. So,
and I know for me, like when I heard about the OnlyFans, I was like, well, that's weird. But at first I was like, okay, I'll take it at face value. It's a non-pornographic OnlyFans. That's strange, but okay, I suppose that's possible.
It happens. It's just not common. Yeah.
As more stuff has come out, I've been like, yeah, I'm not too confident on that one at all.
Yo, wait up, hang on, hold up, guys, hold on. I just got to turn the camera on. I just saw the Beau DeMayo shirtless Magneto helmet pic. Have you guys seen this?
Yes, that's the one. That's one of the ones I was talking about.
That's wild. I'm kind of with it. I got to be honest. I
mean, look, I am pro adult work. Like, if people want to make money doing that, I'm 1000% okay with that. It's just weird that whole like pipeline from. Like, I'm talking about like a major social issue with like anti-black, anti-gay stuff, but come over and check out my topless photos as well. Like it's just a weird segue into that. So
that's like the conservative female influencer pipeline is like do a bunch of like really, you know, like kind of racy, like sex stuff and then turn around and say the N-word on your Instagram live.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Like it's like that Whatever podcast. Have you guys ever seen clips from Whatever, that podcast where they have like the conservative guys on one side of the table and then a bunch of women on the other side where they can just trash talk them and all this other stuff. And they had the one woman on there who was an OnlyFans person, and she had like, I think it was like, she makes millions of dollars. Why are we back to this again?
I'm just switching around.
Oh, there it goes.
At first, I was like, "Can I show this?" And I looked up. I was like, "Okay, here we go." Yeah,
This is.
I just clicked onto his page and saw that immediately, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Eric, is the girl you're talking about? Is she like Iranian and a lawyer?
I don't remember
all of them.
Because there was I don't know if you guys have ever seen Modern Day Debate, but they had their sort of conference or live event in New Jersey, and she was debating Alex Stein, and she absolutely wiped the floor with him.
I don't remember. It's hard for me to remember, but the thing I do remember, Ryan, though, is that she made so much money that she flexed how much money she made compared to everybody on that podcast, and they all kind of got quiet about it because it's like you're coming at her. She's in charge of her own OnlyFans. She's not working for anybody else. She's doing the kind of content she wants to do. And you're saying that she's of low value, but she makes 5 times as much money as they do. So it's like, what are you equating that to? Then it comes down to some sort of idea of socially, what should a woman be doing? And then it all makes sense.
That's it, because in for a female to make money, that reduces her value. But for a male to make money, increases their value, because the man always has to make more money than the woman he's with, which is weird. Because if my partner made millions, not that I'm advocating that she would do OnlyFans. I think if she heard me say that, she'd hit me. But if she was earning more than me, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, really. I don't have an issue with that either. I think it's a weird thing. It's a I mean, it's all part of toxic masculinity, right? I mean, I feel like that's what that is. Like, it's this idea that things have to be traditional and that there's only one way that gender roles work and all this other stuff. And again, also, we're spiraling here, but
I think it's partly insecurity as well. The idea that if she makes more money than me, what's the point of that, keeping me around? Which is...
I would tell you this: if you ever want to like dive into how gender roles are perceived in a very traditional sense, that's not as toxic as I guess those podcasts are, check out the channel Pop the Balloon or Find Love. I don't know if you guys have ever watched these videos before or not, but it's like couples going speed dating with balloon popping, and it's usually done on the most superficial stuff. But the interesting thing about it is you get to hear how like the dating pool of like 30 and up is in today's world and what people are looking for. And it's kind of ridiculous on what people are expecting, like the guys come in and they want a submissive wife that is going to do the kitchen work and raise the kids and stuff. And they say all of this openly. And that's sort of like, it's fine if that's your preference, but I'm surprised there's so many women in that lineup that are also like, yeah, I'm totally down with that. I don't have a problem with it. You can, if I'm acting up, slap me a couple times or something. It's weird that they feel that way. It's just, it's.
If you want a fictionalized version that deals with it really well, my partner and I, we were rewatching Bewitched a couple of months back, and it's amazing how progressive, regressive as well in some aspects, but progressive that show is in how it deals with that sort of gender imbalance of him being the breadwinner, but her being an all-powerful witch.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
My headcanon for it is that Bewitched is actually an alternate version of Mad Men.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the husband is an advertising executive who works in partnership with a white-haired guy.
Yeah.
And has a blonde wife at home. And that's just...
Yeah.
I'm sure that Mad Men is just a remake of Bewitched, but it really does actually tackle social issues, and I mean also beyond that you can look into the allegory of because even in the first episode the prejudice against a witch marrying a mortal man is there. So obviously there's a racial element there, and I think Elizabeth Montgomery was very aware of it being a potential sexual politics and also sexuality sort of allegory, although that is very much under the surface. But it's surprisingly progressive.
I have to go back and watch some of those. I haven't seen them in forever.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Yeah. But I want to give a shout out to Katie Did in the chat. Good to see you, Katie Did. Thank you for clipping all the horrible things that we don't want to sit through.
Yes. Well, that brings us to the last noteworthy news story. Kathleen Kennedy. I know immediately what this story is. She is leaving immediately. She's gone because she had a revelation that all her Star Wars is terrible. All the grifters are actually not grifters; they're correct, and she's realizing that they're all correct. And she's gonna
apparently it's retroactive. She was actually fired 5 years ago. It's just all retroactive. They're just gonna. She's been hiding in their offices.
They didn't want to make it look right. Yeah, this is all accurate and true. Trust us. We don't even have to read this.
I mean, if you fancy, Trump fired her. He got that done. It was Doge that did it.
Yeah. The actual story is, of course, she is retiring because, fun fact, guys, she is 71 years old.
I know. I didn't know that. I looked it up yesterday when I was streaming, and I was like, holy shit. She is 71. She's been working in the industry since the 70s. It's crazy.
And I think a lot of people ignore the fact that she's been a massive influence on so many movies for decades and decades. And like when I learned she was 71, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. That also makes sense because she's been around forever. And she's leaving Lucasfilm at the end of the year. And we all know that Chud Space will claim absolute victory.
They already are. I've already seen the videos of it.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, I've seen them popping up already. And this was just announced yesterday. This is like hours old. And I think another thing that I'm going to go ahead and say it. Whoever they put in charge next, they're going to do the exact same thing. It's just going to be the same shit, guys.
I mean, Heel versus Babyface already did a stream where he said she's going to be gone and nothing is going to change. So they're already setting that up. Let me be very clear here, right? Kathleen Kennedy is one of what I like to call the 4 pillars of the anti-fandom outrage. Like, it is one of those gifts that kept on giving because they were able to complain about Star Wars forever by proxy because of Kathleen Kennedy. That is why. So her being gone is not a good thing for them because I don't think they believed that she was going to retire this soon. I think they felt like they could grift off of her for another 10 years if they wanted. And this is not good for them. So they want you to believe that whoever replaces her is going to be just as bad as her because they need the dollar bills. They need you to keep lining their pockets with money. So that's why they're doing it.
Well, you've also got to set that up early because if any person that they add to the Lucasfilm lineup, unless there's somebody they already have a pre-existing, like unless Brie Larson ends up running,
oh God,
you're just not going to have the same level of of vitriol towards them. Like they're not established. I mean, like somebody like it's kind of got to be a perfect storm in order to get someone to be this sort of like gift that keeps on giving. Generally speaking, they have to be either a woman or a minority, and they have to be able to like get people at the right times to get them fired up about this person. Otherwise, they've got lots of problems with like Dave Filoni or whatever, but he's never been the same level. Like you just can't get the same amount of hatred out of.
Same thing as with Kevin Feige. They've been trying to go against him a bit, but it's not as big as they can do Kathleen Kennedy.
Which, I mean, primarily is because they're men, but, it's just, it's got to be disappointing to see, like, oh shit, there goes a revenue stream.
Yeah. Don't worry, guys. Rachel Ziegler will replace her. It'll be
I mean, you just gave me that title for my next video. I'm going to do a thumbnail with Kathleen Kennedy and Brie Larson on one side and be like the perfect replacement for Kathleen Kennedy is Brie Larson. So that'll be amazing. I think the names that are floating around have been Dave Filoni, obviously, Jon Favreau, Kevin Feige, which I don't see that happening, but that's one of the names
he's too busy with Marvel. I don't see
and oddly enough, J.J. Abrams was another name that I saw being floated around as well. So
wow, 4 people I would really like it to not be. That's fun.
I'd be okay with Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni, I think.
I think Dave Filoni is the most likely. I think Jon Favreau probably I don't know if he'd be comfortable running the studio. I think he'd be more of a willing to direct and more creative, but I don't know. No.
Out of them, I mean, yeah, Filoni is definitely like the least frustrating pick, but like I don't know, to an extent. One, I just don't have any sort of faith in Jon Favreau. Like he's done good stuff, he's done terrible stuff. Like media wise, not morally. But I'm just like I hear those names and I'm like that feels like a Mount Rushmore of people I don't want running Lucasfilm. I'd like somebody new, please.
Well, I mean, it's almost certainly going to be somebody who's worked under her because I don't see them just picking somebody new.
Yeah, but like not somebody who's been in such a leadership role so consistently. You know, like it totally makes sense. Obviously, you want somebody who has like experience, but not somebody that like everybody already knows. It's like we've seen
they have to pick somebody with like business experience, not really like brand experience.
And that's the thing is Jon Favreau, they said, is speaking to what Chariot's saying, that Jon Favreau is a good creative person, but not necessarily the person to run the business because you would take out all of those things that he's done creatively that have made good Star Wars and you'd be putting him in a role where he's just making business decisions. So I think it would have to be somebody that isn't necessarily super hands-on with Star Wars, but would do a good job with like delegating projects. I think
is Bryce Dallas Howard still doing stuff for Lucasfilm?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah, I think so.
I don't know if she's as prevalent as the other names.
Oh yeah,
although she's probably more prevalent than J.J. Abrams has been recently because I don't think J.J. Abrams has been involved for a while. Although of the names listed, he'd be my bottom tier choice. Because not that I don't have any strong objections to J.J. Abrams, but I don't know. He doesn't thrill me either.
Well, the problem is anybody that takes a role like this gives up a lot of their free time, which is one of the issues with like James Gunn taking over DC Studios is that are we ever going to see a James Gunn project that isn't DC after this? And I don't mean just Marvel. I mean anything from James Gunn. So if a person who typically makes movies or TV shows takes over this creative role or this, I guess, delegating role in Star Wars, that means the end of whatever creative stuff they're doing outside of that. So, which is why Kevin Feige running Marvel is fine because he doesn't really direct or write anything anymore, really. So he's just the guy in charge of that stuff. So whoever gets that position would essentially lose the ability to make things. And that's why I think they have to be very particular about who they're picking.
Okay, Andy, you think the ideology is too deep in Lucasfilm for things to change? What ideology? This is coming off very, very chuddish to me, and I hope I'm wrong. But like, I don't understand the ideology. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy is not a writer.
But if the ideology starts with Kathleen Kennedy, then if she's gone, who else would they be reporting to at that point? Because the reason why she exists is because like the board of directors and the people at the top don't directly speak to people in those departments. It comes through like Kathleen Kennedy is that person that bridges whatever is happening at the top and what is happening in the creative side of it. So if people are making things and they have another person in Kathleen Kennedy's spot, then her, whatever it is that she was doing wouldn't be a factor with any of those projects. It would be whatever that person's doing. I mean, that's the hierarchy, right? That's how that works, correct? I mean, you wouldn't be somebody directing a Star Wars project and you skip over whoever is in that role and go directly to Bob. Like that's not how that would work. Not organized chaos, Bob.
I'd like to say two things here real quick. Like the first kind of to that point. Well, I guess first of all, I knew there was an Andy. I'm not crazy. I saw that name somewhere, and that's why that was in my head earlier.
Oh, Andy in the chat. Okay,
yeah,
got you.
I don't know why I said that earlier, but I was like, wait a minute, there is an Andy. And then the other thing is like Star Wars was at its most like communist when George Lucas was making the movies. When he was in charge of everything, that stuff was very left wing, and not in like a propaganda sense, but just in like those were the beliefs that he had, and it colored a lot of the stuff that he made. And that was very, very intense and very thorough. Like there's a ton of jabs at the U.S. government throughout the original 6 like Star Wars films.
I mean, it's like almost like SNL skit level sometimes, like some of the shit in there.
Yeah, like, so it's this comment in the chat: feminism, Star Wars is a male brand. Actually, Star Wars is a socialist brand. If you want to be perfectly honest about it.
So I want to even like I want to sidestep a little bit from that as well and say that like Leia is a feminist icon, right? But she was done in a way that a lot of you guys Andy, and I'm speaking broadly, not specifically about you, but a lot of you guys out there that see as a changed brand now, she was a feminist icon to women because women connected with that character, right? They connected with her. And you guys didn't pay attention to it because you have what a lot of people call nostalgia lenses, or like whatever you want to say about these older movies, like grandfathered in, grandmothered in, whatever the term is. But she's a feminist icon. So the issue isn't the feminism, it is the way it is being delivered to you that you have an issue with. So you have to understand that saying that feminism is bad or that Star Wars is a male brand is sort of whitewashing everything that happened, like overt or covert feminism in these projects. To say there were no feminist icons in the era of Star Wars or Terminator or any of these other movies is just a false statement. It just is. It's not real. There are a lot of women in movies that are strong characters that are considered feminist or feminist icons.
Yeah.
It's just that you didn't see it until someone told you to look for it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, the reason why you're seeing it is because you heard someone, or there's some sort of discourse that told you that feminism in these things is bad and that Star Wars is a male brand or whatever. Do men not like women? Why does Star Wars being a male brand have to mean that there's only men in Star Wars movies and TV shows? Why is that? Do men not like women? And this is the argument I've had several times. The last time I checked, heterosexual men like seeing women and stuff. So why would having a woman in something negate it from being a male brand? I'd love to answer for that. Like, I'd love somebody to explain that to me. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Modern Star, speaking as somebody who, you know, like I don't really usually have a lot of input on some of the topics that are talked about on this show, just because it's like comics, not really my scene. But although I have been playing the Batman Arkham games recently, so I'm starting to get the vibe. But I you know, like Star Wars, it's completely different. Like, I totally grew up on that stuff, and I got to be honest, like the new Star Wars from Force Awakens onward, it kind of feels almost a little sterile to me. And I think part of that is that when you're orienting around like a brand and not like like a particular singular creative vision, like Star Wars was what George Lucas imagined, for better or for worse. And I think I wonder about, like, you know, the Star Wars sequel trilogy. It kind of felt like a little, not the individual films so much, but like the general films as a series, a little made by committee, a little bit like, we're going to take this person's vision and we're going to pair it with this. And, you know, that some parts of it I thought were pretty good. Some parts of it I thought like they could have done more. Like, if you guys have ever like seen like interviews or like any like really in-depth stuff with people who have worked with Daisy Ridley, you know, she's kind of one of the most like tough and charismatic women in Hollywood. Like, she's wild. Just a magnetic personality. And I almost kind of felt like they didn't really use that much. She comes through in a few moments, but they kind of write her like she is this, you know, young, naive girl character who needs the older characters to kind of teach her how stuff works. And I don't know, like the Acolyte, nothing masculine in it. Is that true? I feel like one of the lead actors is like,
I feel like one of the lead actors is a man. Yeah. And
well, look, I also want to point out there's nothing wrong with
masculine stuff needs to be in it. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
isn't being like a wandering samurai who regrets your life choices the most masculine thing ever?
Probably, but I would even say if you are someone that just loves the older stuff, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you also shouldn't tell people they can't have things they want too. You have to understand that, right? So are we saying that because we love something else that other people can't have a piece of it as well? That's a weird way to view art. Like, I will never ever agree to that. I feel like it's a weird gatekeeping thing that doesn't need to exist, because a lot of people love Andor, and Andor is nothing like the Acolyte. And if you prefer that, watch Andor. Let other people that like Acolyte watch the Acolyte. You don't have to consume
you can enjoy
everything.
Them both.
Yeah, you don't have to consume everything. It's okay if something isn't for you. And like when I go into a restaurant, I don't order everything on the menu. You know what I mean? Like if I go into a restaurant, I order what I like, and I don't engage with the stuff that I don't. It doesn't mean that I don't like the restaurant or the restaurant is bad because they offer things on the menu that I don't like. That's fine. You don't have to like that stuff. It's totally cool with liking the OG stuff. I do too. Empire Strikes Back is still my favorite Star Wars thing. Yeah, next to Rogue One. I love Rogue One, and I actually like the Solo movie. I know some people didn't. I liked it. Sorry, I mean, it's probably a hot take. I thought it was fun. But I mean, the point is, you can like and dislike stuff, but to act like things shouldn't exist or shouldn't be, people shouldn't have things catered to them because you like one of these things and the other thing you don't like, is such a weird thing. Like, I'm a 50-year-old guy, right? I think that there's a lot of people out there that love stuff that I don't love, and that's okay. They should be able to engage with it. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Also, like, I think part of the reason why stuff, when guys like the Critical Drinker, you know, they go on these tirades a lot of the time. It's kind of what his brand is based on, where he complains about like movies these days, you know, and I think the thing that he's capitalizing on is this kind of perception that is kind of real. You know, it's narrativized, so it gets twisted and generalized, but there's a strain of like, yeah, I do think a lot of stuff is very corporate now, but that's because like companies really want to like algorithmically generate content that consistently gets the most popular views and therefore also the most possible amount of money. And I like, speaking as an artist, I've made a lot of art that didn't make me a dime.
Right.
And some of the best stuff I've ever made will never be in a gallery or a theater or anything like that, you know. But if you put it on my tombstone, it'll go hard as hell. I just think that, like, you know, it's just, it's weird because, like, the idea, like, no, like, we have to make stuff that's, like, as profitable as possible. I kind of feel like you gotta fail a little bit. Like, you gotta fall down a little bit.
Well,
especially if it's the first season of a show, you know?
Yep. Bingo.
Like, yeah, I don't know. You gotta develop it a little bit.
There's this weird metric that people put on things now where everything has to be 10 out of 10 out of the gate. There's no room for growth on anything. And that is such an unfair expectation of art. Sometimes art takes time. And that's not for everybody. And if something isn't good in the studios, like we put too much money in it, we're going to get rid of it. Fair enough. But when you have a show that was the second highest performer on that platform in 2024, the second most watched thing on that platform, and it still gets canceled, I don't know. I'm just going to say that's a little weird to me. But
yeah, that's the thing, is like executives don't think in terms of like actual views. They think in terms of projected like views versus whether you're meeting your projections. So like if it doesn't, even if it is like the most watched thing, if they wanted it to be twice as watched as it was, even if that expectation is unrealistic, this happens a lot with video games, you know? I mean, people, like, they want things to make crazy amounts of money, and maybe that's not always super, you know, realistic. But I do want to like pull something out of the ether here. There's a comment that just like I saw scroll past.
Okay.
J-Lord says the problem is Disney erased the old standard universe. Also, the problem is not women being in games. It's the way the women look these days in Western games. I'm going to say two things to you. One of them is I'm going to give you an agreement and a disagreement. I'm going to meet you halfway. I do think Disney could do a lot of good at Lucasfilm if they dug back through the old expanded universe and they made sure that they had the rights to everything, and they republished and recanonized a lot of old material, or put more effort into what, like, the Legends publishing stuff. They've done that a little bit, but I think if they leaned really hard into it, I don't know. Like, I always felt like it was a missed opportunity, that there's all this wild, kind of in some ways high concept stuff that maybe it wouldn't have that much mainstream appeal. But like, if you've like read like Drew Karpyshyn's the Darth Bane trilogy. Drew Karpyshyn worked on the original Mass Effect games. He did a lot of writing for those, and he's a really good writer. Matthew Stover, again, like, both of them are really good at writing like martial arts scenes. So everything they do with the Jedi and the Sith is just fantastic. But you know, like, I do agree, a lot of that old stuff has kind of faded by the wayside, and I don't think that's good. The women in Western games thing, that's brain poison. That's brain rot. Women look like
not every woman needs to look like Stellar Blade. No.
Also, like that, I don't think the character in Stellar Blade really looks that good. Maybe this is because I like most of my idols are like lesbians. Well, but I kind of feel like I kind of feel like Real Doll is not a. It's not just that most women don't look like real dolls. It's that doesn't even really look good to me. You know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't. There's just something.
There
about
would be a
that
fakeness if you saw that in real life. If I saw that in real life, I'd be like, "There's something fake." going on.
I do want to point out that
right.
that I only have about 20 minutes left, and I know that video we were going to look at with me is like 40 minutes long. That's a really long video. The one with Gothix and Eric July. Do we want to save that for like a recorded video we can do later on, or how did you want to do that? Because that's a really long one. I'm not gonna have time to stay for that.
Yeah, let's see. Is there anything you want to go over before you have to leave?
No, not really.
I can go a little bit later.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to sit and watch. I want to stay and go over that video with you, but it's just at 37 minutes. That's probably going to take an hour to EFAP, basically.
Oh yeah, it'll take a little bit.
Yeah. Because
was there any?
If we were EFAPing it, it would be like 5 hours.
That's true.
No, if we were EFAPing it, then clear out the rest of your day, guys. We're gone.
I don't know. So like maybe we can do if you want to jump on, or we want to jump on sometime and record it and maybe upload it as a separate video at some point, might be good.
Yeah, we could do something like that.
I do have some Eric July. I do have an Eric July video.
You guys were down for that as well.
That's fine. Yeah, I do have an Eric July video that posted about his business. I don't know if you saw that or not. About like they're not failing. No. Did you see that video?
No, I haven't.
So he posted. So are we done with this topic or no? I don't want to move on.
Yes.
I think we kind of ran its course.
If you have 20 minutes left, go into any topic you want.
So this is a video Eric July made, and the only reason I'm even talking about it isn't because it's like a because I care about his Rippaverse stuff. I really don't, honestly. But he says some stuff at the beginning of this video. It's like in the first 2 or 3 minutes of it that I think are interesting, and Bob, you'll probably find very interesting because it is about comic book business in general. So it's a 9-minute video, but only about 3 minutes of it is really relevant to what we were talking about. If you want to like just, I've pitched the speed up. We can probably get through it pretty quickly because the back half of it is him sort of talking about his business plans and stuff like that. I don't really care about that. But the beginning of it, he talks about like how the Rippaverse compares to comics. And I think there's some toxicity that he ignores in his own content here that is important to me. So if you want to go over this, we can do this as our Eric July content instead of the other one, because the other one's really long. So
yeah, let's go for it.
Here we go. All right.
The Rippaverse is failing. You've probably heard that before. And look, people are free to have their opinions about our work. That's the nature of any creative project. Some folks will like it, some won't, and that's normal. But it's strange how some start attacking neutral voices and even those who speak positively about the Rippaverse. It's like they're invested in.
Okay, so right there at the beginning, he's saying that it's weird. It's weird that when it comes to his business, that it's strange that people start attacking it and attacking neutral voices over his business. Now, the reason why that's strange to me is that is their business model, or it has been for a very long time.
All he does is attack people. That is all he does. And when that's
Geeks
all
and Gamers,
yeah.
Nerdrotic, Critical Drinker, they go after people, actors and directors who are neutral. They haven't said anything to these guys. They haven't engaged with them. They go over and they start attacking them constantly. That is their business model. Mm-hmm. So that's weird. I also want to point out, can you imagine, Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic, all these guys, if Marvel released a video that said, the MCU is failing, oh my God, type business in the comments. Do you not understand how they would react to this video just based on the title alone? I mean, that would be fodder for them, you know? Yes. Same thing with like Warner Brothers or Harry Potter or any other business they want to come after. But it gets even better. Here we go.
Seeing us collapse. Yet, here we are, heading into our 3rd year of supposedly failing. This creates a great opportunity, especially for aspiring independent creators, to dive into some real business lessons, because this isn't just about comics. It's about how success is perceived or misrepresented in the indie space. Many folks.
So here again, how success is perceived. So we're going with a vague terminology to sort of determine what is successful and what isn't. Because before, it was about how much money something made. We had this in the chat today, where people were talking about numbers, about how much Brave New World made, and that determines success or whatever. So now that the narrative has shifted, he's saying, okay, success isn't just based on raw numbers. Now it's based on other factors. There are other things at play here. Watch what's going on in this hand. In this hand. So. Yeah. I know, but the other thing is also that when it comes to like what Eric is doing and the stuff he's selling, he's an indie guy, so he'll pick indie narratives when it suits him. But then you'll see here in a second, when those narratives don't apply, he'll compare himself to Marvel and DC. It's two different, completely different business models.
Yeah.
Two different business models.
It's fascinating because he kind of talks about himself like he's a business owner. That's kind of been the tenor of how he speaks about his work. Not like YouTube stuff, but like the Ripaverse and all that stuff. And I just kind of, it's odd to me. I took a business class once where we looked at like statistical modeling around like how businesses become profitable. And one of the things, and I don't know if the statistic has changed since then. It's been years, but at least at the time, one of the things that we looked at was like it takes like however many years it was for a business to become profitable, and then within those first 7 years, the majority of businesses fail.
Right.
So like that like period, that's the hump that you have to get over as a like a small business owner.
Right.
To where you're kind of successful and you can keep going. You've kind of beaten the odds at that point. So 3 years is not what I think.
You're still in the honeymoon phase in 3 years. It's like that's just the very beginning of everything. You know what I mean? So
also with like, I hate to be conspiratorial, but just with like the Glenn Beck connection and everything, it's just it's kind of like there's some right wing money in there somewhere. So that's not that feels like it's not organic. You know, I don't want to allege anything, but I just wonder.
Well, it's weird how it started out. His first couple of comics were making millions of dollars, and now he's like making substantially less money on his comic books. It's weird how that sort of vanished, and we're not seeing him on political spaces anymore. He's not doing like Fox News interviews anymore. It's really weird how that happened.
And real quick, J-Lord, I just want to respond real fast. I haven't gone over your whole thing, but I just want to say, what you're talking about mainly is art, though, as well. You're talking about art, and I kind of take objection to people talk about what art is supposed to be. Art is what the artist wants it to be, and people can accept it as they wish, but it's the vision of the artist. That's what's important.
Yeah. Also, like just as a comment to that, somebody, I wasn't gonna take it back there. Somebody in chat, I think a mod said, let me find it. You would hate so much anime. I'm a huge anime head, actually. So that's that. I just thought that was pretty funny because I really like manga. But it's because I kind of like.
Oh, is that in your comment about Stellar Blade? Was that the response?
Yeah, I think that was to when I say that. I actually don't. Stellar Blade to me, the character designs don't look that anime. I liked Code Vein a lot.
Yeah.
And if your whole thing is like I don't want to project, but if somebody's whole thing was like there aren't enough big titty anime waifus in video games, just go play Code Vein. You'll have a good time. But I also I kind of liked the way some of those characters were done. There's a lot of dialogue writing in that game, but like this I don't know, this thing like entertainment is supposed to be glamorized and romanticized. Okay, but who's glamour and whose sense of what's romantic, right?
Right.
Like it feels like when people say that, they mean a specific kind of look or a series of looks. Like that people shared around. What was the one game where it's the one? I think it might be modeled on a real actress, but it's the kind of darker skinned woman with the shaved head in the like.
Are you talking about the preview of the? It's an upcoming game.
Yeah, I just knew that I hadn't really played it or looked into it, but I saw a lot of people sharing that. She looks like a bad bitch, Like I'd be into her. Like there's so much of this in the eye of the beholder that when people say things like this, I kind of wonder, like you're a little bit projecting your ideas onto the world and saying, really, the world should cater more to my perspective. And it's like, well, maybe actually the world should cater more to my perspective. Maybe they should all be like, every woman in games should be like that, or like Chloe Price. They should all be like BPD lesbians. I don't. Who's to say? Maybe it's what I like. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, I can guarantee that a vast majority of the people in the chat would not find glamour and romanticism the same as any of us probably in this chat. Like the people on the panel here, I'm sure we all have different ideas of what we aspire to look at and what we find beautiful and this, that, and the other. But the difference is I am not campaigning for the things that you love to be taking out of stuff. That's not my platform. Like if you want Stellar Blade, big booty BBL, like woman running around and almost nothing, okay, you can have that. But if I want to play a game with a character a woman that's wearing full body armor, looking badass with like whatever she has, like weapons and stuff, I should be able to have that too. I think this idea that something shouldn't exist because you don't find it entertaining is a weird perspective. It's just weird to me.
Yeah, I recently played Resident Evil Village, the 8th, like it's not the 8th one that's been made, but it's Resident Evil 8. And that game has that 9-foot tall vampire MILF in it. That everybody was posting about. I think video games have very attractive women in them, actually. I think, and she's not the only one. And I just, I kind of, I wish peace to all the bitches with bad looks. I feel like you gotta love women a little bit harder. Like some people in the chat right now, we're not going to name any names. Some people are you guys are casual women enjoyers. I'm a competitive women enjoyer.
All right, let's continue. Again, this is not going to be we're not going to go through this whole thing.
Focus on the creative side, but overlook the business mechanics. And if you're into that kind of insight, check out my creator business channel where
Okay, so I want to point out, he only showed it for a split second there. That's a dead channel. Creator Business channel is a dead channel. We'll watch it here in a second. There's like 5 videos on it, and it's been up since last year. And he says, I make videos on there all the time. Man, you've made 5 videos on it, and none of them have really cracked through the YouTube algorithm.
Comments. It's about how success is perceived or misrepresented in the indie space. Many focus on the creative side, but overlook the business mechanics. And if you're into that kind of insight, check out my
So here's his Creator Business channel, right? 1.15K subs. His last video was 2 months ago.
All the time.
Why would you subscribe to this channel? Like, there's no point.
Creator Business channel where I dive into these topics all the time. The Rippaverse made waves in 2022 with ISOM #1 generating $3.7 million in sales. Despite technical hiccups, we hit $1 million by day 2, drawing attention from major outlets like Blaze and Fox News. They only wanted to hit us up after we had all that success. This success.
So the funny thing, you notice that line, they only hit him up after they had the success, right? You mean to tell me that Blaze wasn't planning on having him on anyway? I don't believe that. He works for Blaze. So
I just got to point this out. So I looked it up. He doesn't even have the homepage configured for this channel.
Right. Yeah, it's a dead channel. I don't know why he even advertised it, to be honest. I don't even know why he bothered to advertise it. So
he could have at least quick done something up like there. Like
put a playlist on there, like anything.
Yeah.
It's just,
or just like re-upload a bunch of your stuff there just so it looks like there's things there. You know, I don't know. Like,
all you had to do was share the playlist for recent uploads, and then your videos would be up there. Boom.
I also want to point out that he claims his comic books and whatever his little company is not anti-woke, but the 2 places he mentioned were Blaze and Fox. It's funny that those are the only 2 outlets that picked up and talked about his content if he wasn't perceived as an anti-woke creator. He doesn't want to be seen as anti-woke, but you're getting picked up by Blaze and Fox News. Like, my dude.
Well, also, like, if we're being real, right? Like, the whole appeal of a guy like this is that, like, you know, people in these circles pitch the idea, everything's woke these days, everything's this, everything's that.
Right.
God, I wish it wasn't like that. And then the implicit, you know, I guess point attached to that is, you know, what if it wasn't like that? What if we change stuff like that? It sort of seems, however, like what's really being taken issue with there is not that they can't make stuff, because clearly he can. You know, we can dispute the quality or why he's making it or whatever, but like, you know, like he made it. Like, you can say whatever you want about like Eric July, but it exists. The Rippaverse is real.
Yeah, 100%.
So like, I at least kind of respect the. I want to.
But it also breaks the narrative.
There's a lot of things about the attempt.
It breaks the narrative that they can't do this. Like if the idea is that the market will not allow them to do something, but they prove that the market does accept it, then they're breaking the narrative that this stuff can't exist, because it does. So it's there, it's here, people are buying it. I think trying to like come to this perception that just nobody wants this is so weird. Such a weird thing.
This was the result of a perfect storm, a textbook first mover advantage. There was no frame of reference, no prior releases. It was our market entry disrupting the industry in a way few indie publishers could.
He didn't disrupt the industry.
No.
A couple of $1 million is like we've talked about this before. That's actual chump change to most of these big companies. Like a couple $1 million is nothing.
Yeah.
Disrupting the industry is a huge statement. Like, it just doesn't make any sense here.
Yeah, like this is what I mean about like these guys. Like, they skate by and get basically a huge amount of their appeal if they ever make anything. Like The Critical Drinker, same deal. I saw people review that movie.
That movie.
And do a lot of his books.
Brilliant.
And they don't like the stuff that he makes, but like it would just be kind of like, you know, bad, like flaccid material if it wasn't attached to a guy who's presenting it as like, actually, this is how you really do culture. That makes it weird. That's strange, you know? And
it's weird for him to correct companies with actual artists working on things when he can't even make a good movie himself literally he had total creative control over it. It was his. Yeah. So if you can't do that with 100% creative control, how are you critiquing what these other companies are doing? Like, how are you, the nerve, the audacity, I'm gonna use a big word, the audacity of them doing that.
Sketchy Goth Hands in the chat says, no one said he can't make comic books. My issue is that he paraded himself as a comics aficionado and was exposed as a terrible writer with weaker skin. I mean, I agree. We've talked about that on here. I wasn't attributing any statement to you. Or saying that he can't make it. I was trying to make a point that I think that there's something inherently noble about making bad art. Like, you should, if you are making stuff, it's gonna be kind of shit. Yeah. And like the artists who make like their first book is received really well. Like I'm in part a fantasy writer. Patrick Rothfuss, his like debut novel, Name of the Wind, was everybody was like, oh, this is great, this is beautiful, it's awesome. But like even a guy like that, he probably was practicing for years and like redrafting things.
I mean, the goal is hopefully to get better, right?
Yeah.
To get better over time.
Brandon Sanderson said this exact same thing relatively recently, where he was like, a lot of the stuff you make is going to be kind of bad. But that's the point, you know, is it's the process, right? And yeah, like that's kind of my point, is like I would respect that on its face. I think it's suspicious the way that he wants to be like, well, I'm not like not a right-wing grifter, but also my entire appeal is being an alternative to what I decry as like woke.
Right, exactly.
That's just that it's deceitful.
And peak consumer dissatisfaction, filling a void exactly when audiences were hungry for alternatives.
So he thinks that his like $2 million comic books filled a void for Marvel and DC. That's what he says here. I don't believe that either.
There's no books besides Marvel and DC. Like,
well, not only that, but he's selling merch to his viewer. Like, Eric, you have to understand this. No one outside of your social media bubble is buying your comic books. That's why the numbers are falling off. As we're seeing subscribers unsubscribe from your channel, your creator business channel, which is not pulling up any numbers. It's all showing the same thing. There's a disinterest in the content you're making.
Yeah.
And you have not shifted yet. Yeah, you've not shifted yet. You're not filling any voids. Sorry. Maybe a little more girth would be helpful. I don't know. Let's see.
It was
I was just gonna say he's doing his big, the Great War of Separation, which is the first big comic book event. And it like last I saw, the sales were down.
Oh, it's awful.
Like
it's awful.
Else.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's like, And it's like, okay, big comic book events are supposed to boost your sales, right? It's not supposed to keep on going down.
I'm going to explain to you what I see Eric's business empire as. Okay, so it is a merch shop for his YouTube channel. That's what it is, right? He wants to pretend that it is beyond that, but it's not, and it's fine. People can sell all kinds of weird merch. People are selling coffee. People are selling earbuds. Like, there's all kinds of things you can sell, right? He's decided to do comic books, which is his prerogative. He can do whatever he wants. But the problem is that he has a finite amount of people with money to buy said merchandise. And when he was making one book a year, he could make a couple $1 million on that one book, right? He could do that. But when you're making 20 books a year, you are asking the same people to fork over the same amount of money over more projects than one thing. And you're going to run out of people with money to give you. That part seems to be lost on him and a lot of his fans.
Yeah, I don't know.
God forbid you start like going Marvel and DC levels and start releasing multiple books a week.
Yeah, but bro is just out of his mind, egotistical about about inflated success. Let's just be real.
So we're only going to suffer through about another 30 seconds of this, and then there's a spelling error in this video, which is funny. I'll try and find it where we go, but let's go here.
Moment, one that just can't be replicated. In 2023, item number 2 brought in $2.3 million in sales. As anyone familiar with comics knows, sequels, especially issue number 2s, rarely match the debut. But
why is that, Eric? Do you want to talk about why that is? Because now you're not talking about indie creators. You're talking about like actual store comic books. Why those second issues don't sell as much. So you're not even in the same market as the comic books that have that issue, right? That have a problem with the issues number 2 not selling as much as number 1. So you are attributing that loss of money to a business model that you are not part of. You're not part of the same business model as Marvel and DC. You have a direct audience. You are selling direct to consumer. There should be no reason the second issue falls off. Unless people don't like your comic books. And there's a trend, a downward trend of people pulling away from your comics because they don't like them. You don't have the same issue with like comic shops that don't have the space to stock a second issue, that decide they're not going to order the second issue because the first issue hasn't come out yet. There's a lot of reasons why that happens. That's not his business model.
Yeah.
That's not what he does.
Yeah.
So he hustles and works around this idea that I'm indie and I'm going to use the indie excuse for certain things. But then when that indie excuse doesn't work, I'm going to use an excuse that I'm doing what mainstream is doing. It's two different things, man. That's not your business model. The point is here that the Rip-A-Verse and Eric July and everything he's complaining about, this video even existing, tells me that there is trouble on the horizon. Because why would you make this video? Who are you talking to? Are you talking to your customers or are you talking to your critics? And if your critics are far less than your customers, then this video doesn't need to exist.
True.
Let me see if I can find that spelling error here. That's hilarious.
Oh, well, and then like that kind of points to it as well, because egotistical guys like this, you know, like I don't know, like I'm not gonna make any like interpersonal insinuations, but I do think that Chatter said something that I think is really true. Neon Zephyr said, if it was really bad, but you could tell that he was making it because he really loved comics, then you would get a lot more leeway. I think that's so true. Yeah, that was kind of what I was trying to say earlier, except except much more straightforwardly said and better. An
actual passion behind it. Yes, there's been movies where I watch it and I'm like, I don't really like the movie, but I appreciate that was made. I appreciate somebody wanted to do this. Lots of times that stuff will shine through, and that does not shine through in Eric July's comic books at all.
Yeah.
Does anybody have in the chat know the timestamp of the misspelled word? It's really funny. He misspells adaptation in here. No. And again,
are you sure it's not adoption? I can't think.
Hold on, let me see if I can find it. I think it's after the number adoption. 3 here. I just want to pull it up on screen. Oh, here it is. Right,
like a typo misspelling or like a
here it goes. Look how he spelled adaptation. This is a video that got uploaded. This wasn't a live stream.
Ooh. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's not an incorrect spelling. It's market adaptation.
Yes, but from the French adaptation.
But the thing is, this is one of the big criticisms is quality control on the stuff that he's making. And in the video where he is talking about the quality of their products, he makes a spelling error, which is exactly one of the things that people have criticized him about with his fucking comic books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to be like, hey man, your material cuts a lot of corners. It seems kind of low effort. And then to defend yourself from that by doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, look, again, the only reason I even brought that up, because I don't care. He can keep making his shit comic books if he wants. It's fine. But my issue is that he is on the other side of all of this now. When he wasn't making stuff, he had no problem going after writers, directors, artists, companies, business owners. He had no problem doing that. But now that he's on the other side of it, he sees now, oh shit, look at all this criticism coming left, right, back, front. It's everywhere. And people are talking about the quality of my product. And now I have to make a deflection video, right? And this is something that if Marvel or DC or Disney or Star Wars, if any of their CEOs or any of their art directors or editors or whatever made a video like that, they would say, this is a sign of bad things. Because it is. You don't make videos like that. You don't. And the fact that he made it is hilarious to me. It's hilarious. So there's.
I just remember how long they went on McClunky. So.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so that was my contribution for the Eric July segment of the video, since we can't do the 37-minute video. But
thank you, Lucifer. I appreciate that in the chat. It's very nice.
But we will do it. I promise. We'll try and get everybody together and react to that, because it is a fun clip about Gothix and Eric, and I think it can wait till next week. We can definitely do it next week. But yeah. So Sketchy goes. A bunch of comic gates have done this. Not just Eric. It's true, but most of them don't own their own companies that they're selling the same product that they're criticizing. I think Critical Drinker is probably. He's not Comicsgate, but he's part of that space. He's one of the people that's done it.
Is there much of a difference?
Not really. But yeah, my issue is that if you are someone that is on the other side of it, you need to understand that maybe the previous things you were doing aren't good, and you should stop doing them. Like the stuff he does with Az, where he sits around and shits on women and gay people and just about anybody in the creative space.
But
I believe it's jealousy. We're not anti-woke.
I just can't, like, I'm not going to say that there's never been like good like right wing or conservative artists. You know, like people say
there
that about,
actually
like,
are.
There's quite there's been quite a few. Like if you look at writers historically, there's been quite a few. But I think he's
awful, but I like Clint Eastwood's movies. I like.
Yeah, he's all right. I thought he was better as an actor. But I was thinking about like old school writers. Like people used to say like T.S. Eliot was kind of right wing, and like he's one of my favorite poets. There's just a lot of historical artists who are like that. So I don't think that's true. But I say that as scaffolding for what I'm about to say, which is, despite that, I can't think of any good art that was made specifically like out of spite for women and minorities.
Yeah, right. I agree with that.
Maybe there's like a rare unicorn out there, but I genuinely can't think, or maybe like a so bad it's good kind of thing, like that people say that about The Room, where they speculate that Tommy Wiseau had like a bad relationship where he was part of the problem, and that's where that film came from. But like, I don't know. I just if you know what's kind of funny, you got to get over the resentment.
You just made me think of something, Chariot. If there is a right wing or conservative, spitefully made cartoon that's really good, and we haven't seen it yet, does that speak to the fact that maybe that community doesn't know what good art is? You know what I mean? Like, if it exists and we haven't seen it, is it because they don't know how to identify something that's good or bad? Like the general public, of that community, basically, is what I'm saying. Because it would have been amplified, right? We would have seen it already. They would have used it as an example. Like, this is really good, because Daily Wire can't do it. They've tried. They can't do it. I don't know any other big company that would be pumping out that kind of content that's done it at that level, that's specifically made to spite other people. Because let's be clear, I think Daily Wire is a good example of a company that just makes things out of spite. Like, I think everything they do is just spiteful art, you know? But if there is a right-wing or conservative person out there doing spiteful art that is at a high level, either it's buried or they don't know how to determine, like the general public of that community can't determine what's good or bad. That's the only real thing I can see.
I think when you're making art to not be like the other guy, that's going to severely limit your ability. And we don't even have to go to anti-woke sources to look at this. I think you look at the DCEU and how they were going with the Zack Snyder angle because they wanted to not be like Marvel. They went for the dark angle for heroes that really shouldn't be dark. And that, I think that was an impediment upon that universe, where it's like, no, just make good superhero movies. Don't struggle with not being Marvel. Just do good stuff.
But that's their pitch, though, is they think they are, but they're not. It's just spiteful. I would say here, even though Narnia is very clearly Christian, I don't think it's made out of spite, though. I don't think that was a product that was made out of spite. That's the difference. Is like, I think if you look at something like Daily Wire, like Lady Ballers. Lady Ballers is a 2000s-esque comedy that is made specifically to spite trans people and queer people, right? That's the whole reason that movie exists. It was so caught up in that narrative, it never thought about being anything better than that. And that's the problem. Yeah. Like, if Lady Ballers was made... So a good example is, like, American Pie. Like, obviously, that movie's got a bunch of stuff in it that probably wouldn't fly by today's standards. But the point is, it was made with the idea of just to make a funny movie, and there are there's some offensive stuff in it, but it was made to be a funny movie, whereas Lady Ballers was made specifically to own the libs, which is different. So
yeah, well, also like, you know, somebody in chat made a good point, which is what makes good art, though, and I think that's an interesting point, because obviously when I say I think a lot of stuff like that, I can't think of anything made out of like spite towards marginalized people that was like good art. Just off the top of my head, I can't. I like, obviously I'm kind of filtering that through my biases, but also you kind of don't need to, because when you look at right-wing people, moderate right-wingers to more extreme right-wingers, until they hit the point of like rewatching Triumph of the Will on repeat, until they're that far gone, I think even a lot of these guys, like a lot of the stuff that they like that has real cultural staying power, a lot of the stuff that really connects with them emotionally, is not the stuff that they crow about when it comes out. Because like a lot of the Daily Wire stuff, you know, you're going to hear about that for a while, and then are people really going to keep watching it? Is it going to be transformative to culture in any way that you can kind of measure? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that even they really treat it like it's something they think is good. You know, I think they treat it like something they think is useful, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
They treat it like I would treat like a really good like a piece of journalism that like I see, and then it's like informative to my worldview, and then maybe I don't really think about it that much past what I wanted to cite it for, you know? Like it's maybe useful, but you know, it's not like how in like, you know, in some moments I think constantly about that scene in Return of the Jedi where Luke's about to kill his father, and then he looks at his own hand and he looks at his father's missing hand, and the music plays over it. I think about that a lot. That's meaningful to me, not because it's like ideologically like useful. It connects with me emotionally. So they don't seem to treat stuff like that the way that I would treat it. So I'm not even sure that they really think that a lot of the stuff that they ostensibly think is, you know, qualifies in terms of their views of good art, or the art that's necessary today. If you take the critical drinkers argument seriously about like the problem with films these days, they hate men, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I've always argued my favorite lightsaber battle is the Luke Skywalker Darth Vader battle at the end of Return of the Jedi. Not because it looks cool, but because of the emotion involved with it. I just love that.
For me, good art for me is something that is made with intention and passion. Like that's the things I really like to see in art. And I feel like a lot of times things made out of spite don't have either of those. Like it's literally just, we hate this thing, so we want to make fun of this thing, and that's what it is. And you can say that like you look back at like political cartoons and stuff. I mean, there is something to be said about those kinds of things, but most of the stuff we see now is lowbrow. It's not even thought out enough for them to be like, you make a good point. Like it's just awful shit. Like I saw a meme the other day where somebody was making fun of Jasmine Crockett, and they posted like an awful meme, like a caricature meme, like on Twitter or whatever, and I got to a little back and forth with them, and I'm like, you're not saying anything. There's no commentary there about anything that is being said or anything this person stands for. It is literally just like, let me post an ugly picture and say that this looks like them. You're not saying anything at that point. You know what I mean? And that gets under my skin. At least have a point. Like I'm willing to listen to almost anything, which might be like a negative for me, but I'm willing to listen to almost any discussion. But if what you're saying doesn't have any point of view, if it doesn't really mean anything, then I'm just going to immediately tune out and be like, I don't care about this at all, you know. And that's just kind of the way I look at things. With that being said, though, I do have to dip out.
I was about to say, is there anything you want to promote before you dip out?
Just coming, like, I mean, I want to thank, how many people are watching over on my channel? I want to thank like the 50 some people watching over on my channel. I appreciate you guys contributing. You're amazing, even the ones that hate me. Hate watching me.
Hate watchers are watchers.
Yeah, exactly. Continue to tune in for these guys, and my cat's hungry. It's reminding me that it's food time. But anyway, but I'll see everyone later, and have a great rest of the stream, and take care.
Yeah, this was fun.
I gotta deal with some stuff too, so unfortunately I need to run. I was like waiting for him to be ready to go. Not a ton to promote, go check out my channel, go check out the first couple chapters of my book, all of that stuff. But yeah, cool. Thanks for having me. I'll be around.
Awesome.
Yeah, this was fun.
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
And then there were two.
Yes. I was going to say I had one more topic to go over. You up for it, Chariot?
Yeah. Why don't you pull that up? I want to respond to some of the comments in chat. We've been getting a lot of really good comments.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, it's already pulled up, so just point out the comments you want.
Back. Somebody brought up about like what I was saying about art. Like they brought up like I can't find the comment, but oh, here we go. Lucifer. Yeah. People own Hitler's paintings. That's true. I think a lot of the people who pursue stuff like that tend to treat it like historical artifacts. But I think even if you looked at them out of context and you like didn't know who painted it, I think the people who would look at stuff like that and like it would probably like it for what's in it, not because it was made by a guy who also hated Jews. Like I'm not talking about like artists who are problematic, and I'm not talking about like content that's like quote unquote problematic, right? Like Andrea Dworkin had a lot of really biting critiques of Tolstoy, but I don't think that reduces his cultural impact and that people liked him. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think there's what I was talking about, I guess, is like the motivation for the piece and what it contains. Like Lady Ballers, I just don't think had the kind of cultural impact that they wanted, and I also don't.
No.
A lot of the people talking about it positively seemed kind of insincere to me. Like it seemed like the point was to humiliate trans people, and that was really the utility they got out of it, and they walked away.
I mean, the thing to keep in mind about Lady Ballers is that they first wanted to do a documentary, but they couldn't because it wasn't an actual issue, so they had to make something up.
I also want to say to J-Lord in chat, I saw your message earlier. I didn't really have a chance to work it into the conversation. I promise I'm not ignoring you. But you reiterated this, so I want to address it now. The appearance of women in Western games, Resident Evil is Asian, by the way. So the Biohazard games are, I believe, Japanese in origin, but like Americans have worked on those games. So it's not like cut and dry like that, but plain women are the tip of the iceberg. I worry about the rise of, do you mean naturalism and the decline of romanticism? I don't know if you know what those words mean in the arts, because like romanticism has like a specific meaning in terms of art movements.
Like romanticized art is a type of art, and there's also art that's meant to be more real. Like it's different context. I'm a little bit confused. Like art isn't supposed to be one thing or the other. Art is supposed to be the vision of the artist. It's and then how the public perceives it is how they perceive it. But like, I'm really concerned about this argument that art's supposed to be a certain way, because it's not. It's art. It's a weird argument.
Well, I also like, if I'm just trying to think of like stuff that I've seen or played kind of recently. Hang on one second. I can actually determine this because I can just pull up the games that I've been playing recently. I've got an Xbox right over here with another screen that I can look at without destroying my computer. But yeah, no, I just don't. I don't know what you mean by that. And when you use terms like that about art movements, you should I think you should use them with reference to what they conventionally mean among people who study the arts. I'm open to considering this, but like I just want to like look at like some of the stuff that I've been playing. Like I think there's a lot of looking at like the designs of the stuff that I've got right here. There's a lot of I guess what you might call conventionally attractive women and stuff that I've just got loaded up on my console right now. They exist in like Baldur's Gate 3. They're in obviously Overwatch. People know that I like to stream Overwatch and get unnecessarily angry about it. I've not been doing that recently because I haven't been streaming very much. It's not an American studio, but it is, I guess you might call it a Western developer, CD Projekt Red. Do you think they kind of count as because they did the reveal trailer for The Witcher 4, and I think Ciri looks very attractive in that. I don't know how a bunch of people were like, "Oh, she's so ugly," out of their minds. Crazy people.
Oh yeah, I saw people posting that, and it's like she just looks like a woman.
Yeah, I also think a lot of like I don't know, like I think Oh yeah, so games that have been coming out over the past few years. I don't know, when did this one come out? The first Vampire the Masquerade kind of like visual novel game was I can look at it. 2020, and then like the sequel came out also 2020, and the most recent one came out this year. A lot of those characters are like very conventionally attractive. Like they're you know, like there's a lot of vampire stereotypes in them. I don't know, dog. That just seems wrong to me. Like I think it's both. It's untrue in like an analytical sense. I think it's like it's philosophically troubled, and it's also just technically not the case. I don't know what to tell you. I think a lot of that discourse has been warped by like a few people finding like mainstream AAA games that have women in them that are not conventionally attractive, and then that stuff getting blasted everywhere.
Yeah,
like, I'm
so
sorry,
I did-
if you land a woman who looks like this, you're insanely hold on to her forever. This is like supermodel levels of appearance, and I think you're out of your mind if you're like, yeah, you know, there's no women that are like conventionally attractive in games these days. I don't know what I don't want to project that onto your argument, but you're that feels crazy to me.
You know, I saw this made the network on the all the chud circuits about how terrible this is, and I was just like, what? Just because she has a scar, she looks like pretty like. If she was in front of me, I'd probably think she's pretty hot. So I'm not sure what their metric is.
It's like what people did with Aloy. They use like one or two. Actually, I've seen one of the memes that people pass around. That's literally an edited image. It's photoshopped. But they use other ones where she's got like you zoom in super close and she's got like some very light peach fuzz in her face.
Yes.
If you think women don't have that, you've never had sex with a woman.
Yeah, you've never been on top of a woman
to
see that.
Yes, this close to her face. I'm sorry. You could see the peach fuzz.
Yes.
Like women don't get physically close to you if you're making that argument.
I mean,
wild.
Do these guys think women don't have hair under their armpits and stuff like that? I mean, there's all types of little things where I'm like,
first of all, that's hot. Second of all, I don't know, like, but then that gets to the point about like idealization, but like whose ideals, you know? Also, here's the thing, like cultural dominance is a funny thing. If a bunch of the same type of stuff gets made over time, it's not going to be forever. You know, people are going to make new stuff, and then later on there's going to be a revival. But the thing is, like, let's say I'm just going to treat your comment like as written. Let's say that you want more romantic art, like romanticist art. That's the kind of poetry that I write. It's the kind of material that I write. I haven't stopped, you know? So like the issue is not that it's not being made. It's kind of that, you know, people don't always have an interest in it. And that's fine. But I feel like when you're noticing the decline of a certain thing, you're noticing like pop culture trends, you know?
Yeah.
And I just it's just weird. It's just weird to be obsessive about that kind of stuff. Because like when I was a kid, people would be like, oh, like pop culture, most people are dumb, like they don't have good taste. And then now people say that, but with like real resentment, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's worth being resentful about it.
So the one more topic I had was a movie review from Donald Trump. Are you interested?
I'll wait, a movie review from Donald. Is this that one that there was one that got published like forever ago that people dug up? Is this like an old one or a new one? Like a newer
I think it was posted on YouTube like 10 years ago. I stumbled across it, but like I want to say it's like I would guess it's like 30 years old at least from the look of him, because it's a video review.
I think I've seen this, but I want to watch it again. Yeah,
it is a review of Citizen Kane.
Oh, so Neon Zephyr says in chat, Trump stayed awake through a movie. So there's actually an interview, I think it's with Donald Trump Jr., where he says that he and his brother and his dad would watch movies together, but they would fast forward to specific parts of the movies consistently, like action sequences where people are like in fights and stuff like that.
Oh my God. Well,
so maybe.
I do think this review is interesting. So, like, I think there's aspects to this review, and you can tell that were written for him, and aspects that are off the cuff. And when we go over it, I think it'll be pretty clear to everybody.
The word rosebud is maybe the most significant word in film, in what we all watch.
I guess I'll go ahead and add. I haven't seen Citizen Kane since college. I do think it's worth watching, especially if you're interested in film. It's not like a fun watch, but it's a fascinating watch. Have you ever seen a Citizen Kane, Chariot?
Oh, I had a friend who was like a big film buff guy, and I think so.
Yeah, but, it's worth the watch for no other reason, and I don't remember how old it is. It's obviously not a new movie, but like a lot of the camera work in that movie was pretty freaking revolutionary. Like, how old is that movie?
A movie
1941.
like that made a much stronger impression on me was the original Psycho. Because again, like it's a lot of like
that's
really
a lot newer as
like,
well.
Camera work. It is a lot newer, yeah.
But yeah, that like there's like tracking shots where we're watching like an orb fall in Citizen Kane. It's like stuff where it's like 20 years before its time easily. Like it's like Psycho quality camera work in Citizen Kane. It's wild. And yeah, it's also pretty much about a rich guy who pursues wealth to the point where he just dies a hollow, lonely man.
The wealth, the sorrow, the unhappiness, the happiness just struck lots of different notes. Citizen Kane was really about accumulation. And at the end of the accumulation, you see what happens, and it's not necessarily all positive.
No.
Not positive.
And there's elements here where while I was first watching, I was like, is he self-reflective at all? And it wasn't until a little bit later I went, oh, I bet you somebody wrote this for him.
Yeah, well, probably, right? Like that. It probably was. Also, like, even if it was him, first of all, he should have done this for the rest of his life.
Yes.
He would have been one of the greatest, maybe unintentional, probably unintentional, but one of our greatest comedians. If he, instead of getting into anything political and just like making like birther remarks on Fox News during the Obama years, if he had just done this for the rest of his life, this is very funny.
Trump movie reviews.
Yeah, that
I think you learn in Kane that maybe wealth isn't everything, because he had the wealth, but he didn't have the happiness. The table getting larger and larger and larger, with he and his wife getting further and further apart as he got wealthier and wealthier. Perhaps I can understand that. The relationship that he had was not a good one for him. Probably not a great one for her, although there were benefits for her. But in the end, she was certainly not a happy camper.
I don't know. This won't be quite as funny without knowing his future though as well. So I don't know how well it would work.
I think what really hits me about this and kind of the comedy of this is there's a great, people should look this up. I got to go in a couple minutes, but there's a great David Foster Wallace interview, and one of the things that he says in it, because he was just like a font of great remarks. He said there's something narcissistic about self-hatred. And man, listening to basically any of the Trumps give interviews, Donald and anybody who's related to him, I really see it. God, that's so true. And it's like right there what he's talking about. Perhaps I can understand that. Like he's like, that's not a happy thing to say, but also like he's kind of enjoying that it's true.
Yeah.
So it's
kind of twisted.
He's putting himself down, but he's having fun. That's.
in real life, I believe that wealth does, in fact, isolate you from other people. It's a protective mechanism. You have your guard up, much more so than you would if you didn't have wealth. There was a great rise in Citizen Kane. And there was a modest fall. The fall wasn't a financial fall, the fall was a personal fall.
I mean, he doesn't fall financially really, but like, the fall personally is kind of stark. Like all the shit he did and at the end of the day, he just wants his fucking sled back. Ow.
Yeah, I mean that. First of all, he still got like this was before his brain was quite as rotted as when he got into running in politics, but you can still see like the real Trump here.
Oh yeah.
When Citizen Kane, he had perhaps one of the best financial successes ever. Certainly, maybe almost as good as me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're pretty solidly still in the stuff that I'm pretty sure was written for him, but we'll get to some interesting stuff here.
It was a fall nevertheless. So you had the highs and you had the lows. A lot of people don't really understand the significance of it. I'm not sure if anybody understands the significance, but I think the significance is bringing a lonely, rather sad figure back into his childhood. The word Rosebud, for whatever reason, has captivated moviegoers and movie watchers for so many years, and to this day is perhaps the single word. And perhaps if they came up with another word that meant the same thing, it wouldn't have worked. But Rosebud works.
Rosebud works.
Right. For whatever reason.
If you could give Charles Foster Kane advice, what would you say to him?
Get yourself a different woman.
Jesus Christ.
Oh man, yeah. See, it's interesting because like I agree that was probably almost definitely written for him.
Yeah,
but there's little
until
moments
the ending where I'm like, okay, I like the talk about Rosebud. It's like Donald Trump surface level shit right there.
Yeah, I mean they might have told him what the questions would be, but like I think when you hear him talking there, the parts that are scripted are when he's like saying like there was a rise, there was a fall, all that stuff. But then like he just slips stuff in there because like that's what he does when he reads scripts is he just tries to own it. Like he'll say something like if the script says, Citizen Kane has a great financial rise, he'll say like Citizen Kane, I think I've said this. People maybe don't always agree. I've said this, and it just like slips it in there, and that's what I guess I mean about like the narcissism is like, even when he's talking about the idea of like hating yourself, being a man who a woman could not stand to be, or destroying the relationships around you, he's still like he's feeling himself. He's having a time. I don't know that.
There's a very surface level aspect to him that is. I still don't know how he became president. I don't at all. But yeah, I would be the world would be much better if he just dedicated himself to reviewing movies.
Yeah,
he could have had a very prosperous YouTube channel. But yeah, I do love how like his big conclusion at the end is just find yourself a different woman. It's like that is such a Trump thing. Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, that's pure him. But for whatever reason is my favorite remark there. The word for whatever reason. It's almost it makes you wonder if he's seen it or if he or if it's more so that he did see it, but he's just not really capable of caring.
Yeah, I don't know, like watching that, I don't know if he's seen it, and I don't think he's understood it. Like I think obviously he had somebody who wrote stuff for him that like at least was able to bring up the table aspect, which is a fun little visual cue. But like, I do think it's interesting, not one mention about camera work or anything, which is like when you watch that movie, that stands out distinctly. But of course, getting a deep dive on anything from Donald Trump is good luck on that one. But
yeah.
But yeah. Well, Byron, like I said, I don't know if I would say I enjoy Citizen Kane. I do think it's worth watching, especially if you're into films, because it's definitely groundbreaking in what it is. It's kind of a remarkable movie, even if I don't particularly enjoy it. It's definitely worth watching. And yeah, it's not like I don't enjoy it for any like ethical reason or anything like that. Just not exactly a fun watch. It's not any qualitative reason or anything like that. But that's pretty much all we were going to go over. Cherry, anything you want to promote?
Yeah, I mean, I'm uploading like a small thing for tomorrow. But long term, I'm working on some really fun stuff that I haven't really been able to disclose yet. But I think yeah, probably next month I'll have some videos that I think people will find provocative. One that I put a lot of effort into, like scripting. I've kind of been lost in like the editing process, and then also in like getting sick for such a long time. But
yeah, well, it's good to see you here. I was
yeah,
yeah.
It's listen, it has not the world and life has not been kind lately, but I've been trying my best. And then I've got let me actually, I've got a schedule written up here. Yeah, over like March and April, I've got a couple things that I want to some I guess, I don't know, like high concept video essays that I kind of want to put out there. One of which is gonna go crazy. Like I think, I don't know if it'll actually do well, but just in terms of the emotion that I'm putting into it, it's really hardcore. But then if all goes well and I'm able to kind of keep up my I think so. If all goes well and I'm able to keep up my my work schedule for this stuff, starting in May, I've got some wild stuff, and it's hopefully we'll get back to putting some cool stuff out there. I guess like some of the more like effortful stuff I've done was like the Wolfenstein video and like the Dark Souls video, where it's like hours of me talking about video games and like using quotes from philosophers and stuff. I've got another video like that for May about the Borderlands games, so I've been working on that a lot. It's about postmodernism and video games and the arts, so that'll be really interesting. At least I think so.
Over on my side, I have a stream tomorrow. We'll be going over some comic books. I got a comic book poll up for Saturday. You guys should vote on. And I am also approaching the 200th episode of the podcast, and we need votes on what great trash we're going to be reviewing on the podcast. And please, for love of God, don't make me watch Catwoman again. I almost want to yell at my co-host Bobby for putting that up there, because I'm like, no, not Catwoman. Fuck. I will do it if it wins, but no. But yeah, that'll be under the Organized Chaos Podcast posts tab, not community tab, post tab. And then yeah, my comic book poll is up for tomorrow. But yeah, thank you guys for. Oh, do you want to go over that real fast?
What even is postmodernism? So I often find I feel a certain amount of I'll just do this super quick because I gotta go eat.
I figured, yeah.
I feel a certain amount of discontent when people talk about it, because I feel like people try to tackle it from like a philosophical angle, and usually I think not always, but frequently do kind of a poor job. It's hard to give like a really brief intro to like a whole like movement like that, you know what I mean? But I hope to give people an impression of it in the video. What I studied when I was in university was like postmodern literature, and I can give you recommendations if you want to be familiar. I think one of my favorites is Vinland by Thomas Pynchon. That was one that a old professor of mine put me onto. And I like Pynchon. I like Pynchon a lot. I think Don DeLillo has written a lot. Like these are guys who are kind of for their era considered like the great American novelists. David Foster Wallace would be another one. I mentioned him earlier, actually. If you're not like maybe not a big reader, Infinite Jest, a little intimidating. I get it. I will say, like, if you can look up just videos of like David Foster Wallace, he's got like a commencement speech that he did. He's got a bunch of interviews from when he was doing like book tours and stuff. If you want to get a sense of like culturally where those creatives were coming from and what that art movement is like, I think you can get a pretty good impression from listening to those. So, that stuff's on YouTube if you're interested. Don't ask Jordan Peterson. He'll talk vaguely about like Marx and Foucault for a while. Don't really have a lot to do with it, unfortunately.
And Shaquille O'Neal's Steel is actually on the podcast agenda for next Monday. So I will be watching that in the next few days. I am not looking forward to it, but it might be fun. And yes, I will agree. The holiday special was a lot of fun, and I hope to figure out something else I can watch. Obviously, Captain America 1979 took down the stream, but I'd like to figure out something I can watch. It's like just B movie that won't take down the stream because that is fun. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to like and subscribe to all the channels involved. We got Chariot over here. Earlier, we had Edgier Than Now. We had Eric G. Bunks, Eric's Reloaded. And then we have the rest of the Initiative stream. Oh, yeah, we had Nothing But Media for a little bit as well. We got the rest of the Initiative, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Do all the YouTube stuffs. It helps out a lot. I cannot stress how much it helps. And then, of course, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. And I wonder if there's a outro end stream.